Aizawa Shoyuta has witnessed many weird and strange things in his brief career as a professional hero. Since graduating from the UA, he has participated in multiple villain defeats, criminal gang dismantling, and dozens of civilian rescues that remain in his memory, whatever he does. But this situation takes the cake as the craziest he has ever seen. The call had come a few hours ago. A villain, the ex-husband of one of the tenants, had set a fire in an apartment building, and most of the occupants were injured or killed. The villain's son had disappeared, supposedly after his gift manifested due to the stress of the situation, and that's how Aizawa found herself tracking the boy to the forest on the outskirts of the city. "What the hell?" says Hizashi to their right, staring in shock at the scene in front of them. Yamada Hizashi, known as Present Mike, is Aizawa's husband and fellow hero. Although both have a few years of experience as professionals, neither fully understands what they see now. The missing boy, Midoriya Izuku, is currently at least 15 meters tall, curled up on a tree branch. It wouldn't be strange, except for the fact that the boy is 4 years old and definitely can't climb 15 meters, and the trees are moving. One of the branches gently strokes Izuku's hair, like a reassuring father, while another tangles small vines around the boy's legs. Hizashi says, scratching his head. Should we call Kamui Woods? He could be the closest and most authoritative hero in this. Kamui doesn't make trees come to life. Aizawa says quietly, looking at the situation. Look, it's like they're protecting him. They both look up and see the little boy wrapped with great affection between the branches of the trees. The sight makes Aizawa so anxious that it makes him want to vomit. If the trees react to the children's quirks, if you lose control, the child could fall to the ground. "I'm going to go up there," Aizawa says calmly, clutching her capture weapon. "Stay down here in case the kid falls." "Be careful," Hizashi says firmly, and Aizawa nods, hanging his capture weapon from a branch and climbing up. He didn't expect the trees to harden and a large branch to curl around his waist, stopping him. "Shit," curses Aizawa, not taking his eyes off the boy who was still sleeping 9 meters above. The tree seemed agitated, twisting and turning around him, and Aizawa could hear Hizashi calling him anxiously down. A strange idea occurred to him, and he sighs, thinking that he should at least try. "Hey, excuse me, tree," Aizawa says awkwardly, trying to get over the fact that he was kind to a damn plant. "I don't want to hurt the child. I'm here to bring him down. If he falls from this height, he will die. I'm just trying to keep him safe." The tree stops twisting, crunching its branches a little before slowly starting to lower the child. Aizawa feels the branch around him move, and he and Izuku are safely lowered to the ground. Izuku is still asleep or unconscious. Aizawa is not sure which one, but the tree deposits the child in its arms as soon as they touch the forest floor. The tree crunches Izuku's hair before the branches return to their normal position. The tree stands still, as if it hasn't moved. Aizawa stares intently at the boy in her arms, with his curly green hair and freckles. He is definitely asleep and seems unharmed, much to his relief. Looking out over the now normal forest around them, Aizawa wonders what the hell this boy's gift is. "So, we found a little forest spirit." Hizashi smiles, looking at the boy before his face fades away. "Poor listener. Your mother died in that fire, right?" Aizawa nods as they leave the forest to where the ambulance and rescue services are waiting. "Yes, right in front of the child." Apparently, the ex appeared and argued with the mother. The ex was that villain that All Might caught a few years ago, Blaze. He burned down the apartment and killed everyone inside. I think he didn't manage to escape either. "Shit," Hizashi curses, looking at Izuku, who was still sleeping. "And how did the little boy get out of there? I guess it has something to do with the rare trees." "Yes, apparently a bunch of roots shot out of the bottom of the street and grabbed the child, dragging him into the forest," sighs Aizawa as he sees the ambulance. "They caused serious material damage, destroyed almost an entire road for kilometers. It was as if the forest was protecting him." Hizashi's eyes widen and she looks at the boy with a tender and affectionate gaze before looking back at her husband. "No," Aizawa says, though he already feels his resolve crumble. "No, Zashi, don't ask." "But Shoyuta is so cute, and he has nowhere to go," Hizashi pleads. "I know we're young, but we can handle it. And besides, if his gift is destructive, He'll need someone like you to help him control it until he can control it, right? Also, look at that little face. The baby needs us, baby. Aizawa sighs, looking at the child curled up in his arms, and curses himself as a protective vein ignites within him. He imagines Izuku going to a foster home with another family, and that leaves him a little sick and angry. Shit. All right, Aizawa murmurs, as Hizashi squeals beside her. We'll take it away. But first we have to talk to the guy, Zashi. He might have other family members or friends that he would rather stay with. We don't know anything about him. He could hate us. Hizashi nods, but his eyes are filled with love and excitement as he looks at the boy, and Aizawa feels his heart fill. Hizashi has the biggest heart, the most loving and kind soul Aizawa has ever known, and he is so lucky to be married to him. They arrive at the ambulance, and the doctors examine Izuku, still unconscious. Aizawa and Hizashi talk to the police, explaining everything they saw with the trees and expressing their desire to adopt Izuku. The detective in charge of the case seems relieved. Really, I'm glad you said that, sighs the detective, looking worried. After all the havoc he caused tonight, the commission was considering taking him in. I think being with you is the perfect solution. He doesn't have another family alive, and you two already have your emergency foster care licenses, so it shouldn't be a lot of paperwork. Hizashi nods from where he holds Izuku. Aizawa takes a tablet from the detective and fills in some information. None of them like what the officer said about the commission wanting to take Izuku away. Can we opt for adoption instead of foster care? Asks Aizawa, watching Hizashi's eyes widen. Something more permanent? The detective looks surprised, but nods. Yes. It takes longer, but we can. Shouldn't you? Talk to the guy first? He's still unconscious, isn't he? Aizawa blushes, surprised, as she turns to the sleeping child in her husband's arms. Hizashi smiles at him, running his fingers through the boy's hair. It is this action that wakes up Izuku, who wakes up with a yawn while rubbing his eyes. Mom? He asks, blinking as he looks around in confusion. Aizawa kneels in front of him, her face as kind as possible. Izuku looks at Aizawa, and then Hizashi, opening his eyes slightly. Present Mike? Asks Izuku, astonished as he looks at Hizashi. You are present Mike. Aizawa is surprised that the boy recognizes her husband. Hizashi is not yet well known, but he has a radio show that is very popular with children. That's right, little listener, Hizashi murmurs. That's Eraserhead, another professional hero. Do you know what happened tonight, Izuku? Izuku thinks a lot for a moment before his face decays and his eyes fill with tears. A scary man hurt Mom, Izuku says quietly, and then, I felt weird and left. That's right, Aizawa says softly, and Izuku turns to look at him. Izuku, we believe that your gift manifested tonight. Do you remember going to the forest? Izuku's eyes widen before he slowly nods, tucking his thumb into his mouth and biting into it. Uh-huh. The trees were sad. They protected me from the scary man. Hizashi reassures Izuku, gently rubbing his back. Of course, kid. Listen, Izuku, my name is Yamada Hizashi and Eraserhead's name is Aizawa Shoyuta. Izuku, darling, your mother. He did not survive. He left. Izuku takes it in for a moment before looking at Hizashi with confused eyes. Where did he go? The childish question breaks Aizawa's heart, who kneels in front of the boy and gently holds his hand. He died, Izuku. In the fire. The words sound harsh, but Aizawa never lies to children or minces words. Telling Izuku some silly thing about his mother being in a better place, or a confusing explanation will only make things worse. Aizawa would prefer that Izuku prosecute him now. Izuku's eyes widen, but he doesn't cry. He looks heartbreakingly confused and small as he leans on Hizashi's chest. Aizawa watches as some flowers on the ground wither under her feet. Izuku, are you doing that? Aizawa asks sweetly, looking at the sad flowers. Izuku also lowers his gaze, grimacing as he nods, burying his face in Hizashi's chest. All right, little one, Hizashi murmurs. Hey, if that's okay with you, Shoyuta and I want to take you home. Adopt you. Is that okay with you, little listener? Izuku slurps, leaning back so he can look at them both. Live with present Mike? And Eraserhead. Yes, boy, Aizawa says, feeling the policeman's gaze on them all in the background. Izuku nods. Okay. A whirlwind of paperwork, phone calls, a heated argument with a commission official, and a few hours later, Izuku returns home with them, officially. The apartment where Izuku lived burned down completely, so there are no personal effects that can be taken with them for their new son. Izuku has fallen asleep from the exhaustion and trauma of the day, so Hisashi carries him carefully while Aizawa quickly places an online order for clothes, shoes, toys, furniture, and anything else he can think of. I should sleep in our room tonight, Aizawa murmurs quietly in the back seat of the patrol car. The detective who had spoken to them that night offered to take them home so Izuku wouldn't have to be outside. Yes, we don't want a tree in the living room, Hisashi jokes, reaching out to run his fingers through Izuku's hair. Speaking of which, I'll schedule an appointment with a psychologist to sort this all out. Aizawa sighs, lies down and closes her eyes, sleeping a precious 10 minutes before arriving at her apartment. After thanking the officer, Hisashi and Aizawa carry Izuku, who was still sleeping, inside. Wow, our apartment is not childproof, Hisashi whispers as he enters. Aizawa sighs and nods as they look around. The decoration of the apartment is mainly the work of Hisashi. It's not a huge apartment, just 2 bedrooms and a bathroom. The second room is currently an office, which Hisashi mainly uses to work on his radio show, but Aizawa knows that they will have to empty it to make room for Izuku. Everything I asked for him should come tomorrow, Aizawa murmurs, holding Izuku in her arms. In the meantime, I'll put one of your t-shirts on him and we can put him to bed. That night, as Izuku sleeps among them, Aizawa feels a surge of protection she has never felt before, and she knows she is already attached to him. I love you, Sho, Hisashi murmurs, his arm around Izuku protectively. And our new son. Me too. Aizawa smiles. Let's get some sleep. The next morning, Aizawa wakes up and hears a loud chant coming from the kitchen. She blinks a little before turning around and realizing that her husband and Izuku have disappeared. Yawning, he sits up and leaves the bedroom, smiling at the scene. Hisashi is in the kitchen preparing pancakes, and Izuku is holding on to his leg, trying to see what's on the stove. Hisashi sings to the rhythm of the radio, and although Izuku seems a little lost, Aizawa is relieved to see that he is attached to Hisashi and seems to trust him. Good morning, Aizawa greets softly, and they both turn. Hisashi smiles beamingly and Izuku opens his eyes slightly before waving to Aizawa. Good morning, love, Hisashi says beamingly, and Aizawa reaches over to give him a small kiss before bowing in front of Izuku. Good morning, Izuku, Aizawa says softly. How are you today? Izuku doesn't answer, but extends his hand to Aizawa, who widens her eyes in surprise. He picks it up and he leans on it, wrapping his hands in Aizawa's pajama shirt. Aizawa moves the boy on his hip so that Izuku can turn around and watch Hisashi flip pancakes on the stove. Do you like pancakes, little listener? Asks Hisashi, and Izuku nods, much to the delight of both. Hisashi smiles beamingly, finishing the first pancakes and making a pile on a plate to the right of the stove. They eat breakfast happily, and both Hisashi and Aizawa watch Izuku with concern. He hasn't really cried since learning of his mother's death, and neither of them is sure they really understand what's going on. Izuku eats breakfast and even helps Hisashi clear the table. Aizawa takes Izuku to brush his teeth, which he does without complaint. Last night, they washed the clothes that Izuku was wearing in the forest, so they put the clean clothes on him. Izuku sat down on the sofa after getting dressed, looking a little lost. Both Aizawa and Hisashi had canceled work for the rest of the week, wanting Izuku to feel comfortable and safe. Izuku, later we have a lot of exciting things for you, Hisashi says quietly. Let's turn the office into your new bedroom. What do you think? Izuku looks at him, nodding slowly before curling up next to Hisashi, sticking his thumb into his mouth. The small plant on the coffee table creaks suddenly, and Aizawa watches in amazement as one of the stems elongates, sliding upwards and curling around Izuku's arm. Hisashi and Aizawa watch in amazement as their small, overwatered plant strokes Izuku's head before returning to its normal position. We should probably check that out too, Hisashi laughs, tousling Izuku's hair. You have a good hand for plants, huh, boy? Izuku looks a little confused, looking at the plant sweetly. He hasn't said anything yet today, but no one wants to put too much pressure on him. They end up playing a documentary about nature, sitting in relative silence until their deliveries arrive. Izuku watches wide-eyed as dozens of boxes enter the apartment, including a huge one that must be his bed. Hisashi had emptied the office last night, so the room is completely empty now, having placed the desk that was there before in a corner of the room. The delivery drivers unpacked the box and prepared a bed in the office, leaving Hisashi and Aizawa in charge of the rest of the boxes. Once the bed was prepared and the delivery men were removed, Izuku entered and saw a small bed attached to the wall of the old office. It wasn't a very big room, but it had a nice window, a small closet, and sunlight streamed in. "Here, boy, we're bringing you a bunch of stuff," Aizawa says, bringing some boxes with Hisashi. "We'll keep your clothes and stuff, but why don't you look at this?" Izuku's eyes almost pop out of their sockets as Aizawa hands him two top-of-the-line action figures. Izuku's eyes sparkle when he sees them. "Thank you," Izuku says softly, and Aizawa smiles, relieved that Izuku is speaking. "You're welcome, little one," Hisashi replies. "Now why don't you go play around and let Shoyuta and I do all these boring things." Izuku sits on the floor, playing with the action figures while Hisashi and Aizawa go through the new clothes, removing the tags and putting everything in the closet. Once the clothes are put away, they start making the bed with a cheerful set of sheets and green duvet, and add a stuffed panda bear that Hisashi had ordered. After that, they unpack a large number of books, stacking them neatly on the floor next to the bed. Aizawa makes a mental note to ask for a bookshelf and a bedside table. Hisashi unpacks the last box, filled with a bunch of toys of different kinds: puzzles, a train, building blocks, stuffed animals, more action figures, and a racetrack. Izuku shrieks at the sight of them and soon gets lost in the game. After throwing all the boxes into the recycling, Hisashi and Aizawa sit on the couch while Izuku plays, about to schedule a medical checkup and an appointment with a psychologist. "Do you think he understands what's going on?" Hisashi whispers so that Izuku does not hear him. Aizawa sighs, running an exhausted hand through her hair. "I don't know," Aizawa replies. "Let's talk to him after lunch. Perhaps we should schedule a therapy appointment for him as well, after seeing Don's counselor. I really don't want to wake up with a giant vine in bed or something because I handled things wrong." Hisashi laughs, and they both return to Izuku's new room, watching fondly as their new son sprawls on the floor with all his new toys. "We need some decorations," Hisashi says, looking at the bare walls. "And a bedside table and a bookshelf. I'll order them right now. Can you think of anything else?" Aizawa thinks about it before saying, "Maybe movies and games for kids?" The truth is that we don't have anything like it. After a morning of unpacking and playing, Izuku joins them for lunch. Hisashi prepares grilled cheese sandwich and Izuku eats happily, finishing his sandwich before moving on to the grapes that Aizawa put on his plate. "Well?" asks Aizawa, and Izuku nods with a smile. They finish lunch and clean themselves. Aizawa takes Izuku to the couch. "Izuku, kid, we want to talk to you," Aizawa says softly as Hisashi sits next to them. Izuku looks confused, but nods, snuggling against the hero's chest. "About what?" Izuku murmurs, putting his thumb in his mouth. Hisashi reaches over to ruffle Izuku's hair before smiling sadly at him, wondering how they can tackle this without causing an absolute collapse in their new child. "Shoyuta and I are worried about you, Izuku," Hisashi begins quietly. "We wanted to make sure you understand that you're safe here and that we're taking care of you now, and we want to answer any questions you have about it." Izuku stares, taking his thumb out of his mouth before looking at Hisashi and Aizawa. He bites his lip with tears in his eyes. "Mom died," Izuku says quietly, wiping his eyes. "I remember it. Our house burned down and Eraserhead and Present Mike adopted me. Now I live here." "That's right," Aizawa says quietly, her heart aching for the boy. "It's okay to be sad, Izuku. It's okay to cry. It's okay to miss your mom." As if waiting for permission, Izuku turns his face to Aizawa's chest and cries loudly. It's heartbreaking, but Aizawa simply calms the boy as best she can, rubbing his back and murmuring words of comfort. Hizashi puts an arm over Aizawa's shoulder, and with his free arm grabs one of Izuku's hands so that the boy feels comforted as he cries. Nearly an hour later, Izuku cried himself to sleep on Aizawa's chest, and he was carefully moved to his new bed, tucked under the covers. While he slept, Izuku huddled around the stuffed panda, and while they were both sad for their new child, they were also relieved that no plants came through the wall during their outburst of emotions. The next day, Izuku wears one of his new outfits, a green t-shirt, blue shorts, and yellow Velcro shoes. They have just gone to his physical, where, to everyone's relief, Izuku was declared perfectly healthy. After a short lunch at a nearby cafe, it's time for your appointment with the psychologist of your gift. After checking into the Quirk's Musafada Children's Center, Izuku is taken to a section titled Nature and Animal Quirks. They enter a hallway with a cheerful mural running along the wall with various animals and plants, a colorful and cheerful atmosphere. Hizashi and Aizawa accompany Izuku to a room with a door labeled Natural Quirks and open it. Izuku's jaw drops in the waiting room at the sight of a receptionist with vines instead of hair and dozens of plants all over the room. They search him and, after a short wait, call Izuku to the back with his new parents. He is led to a huge room that looks like a huge greenhouse, and Izuku's eyes shine. "Hello, Izuku," a doctor says with a smile as he enters. "My name is Dr. E and my gift is called ramification. I can create branches and leaves with my arms. See." She stretches out her arms and Izuku watches in amazement as her skin transforms into bark and spreads out, flowers and leaves blooming on them. He wants to reach out and touch her, but he remembers her manners and looks at her with bright eyes. Dr. E gently withdraws her gift, while Izuku watches her with obvious delight before continuing. "Young man, I heard that you have a very interesting gift. When I found out, I was so excited to meet you." What follows is a series of questions and tests, and Izuku can touch and play with some plants in the greenhouse. He has a great time, laughing when the plants ruffle his hair, which reminds him a bit of Hizashi. 2 hours later, Izuku leaves the appointment with a name for his gift and an understanding of all that he can do. Called Floral, Hizashi reads of the paper the doctor gave them on their way out. "Because you can call the plants and wake them up, right? How good, kid. We'll have to get new plants for the apartment, huh?" Izuku nods enthusiastically from where he is holding Aizawa's hand. "Uh-huh, and I want to play in the woods too. Can I, please?" "Sure, boy," Aizawa says. "As long as we go with you." Over the next few weeks, everyone adjusts to each other's lives. Hizashi and Aizawa get used to having an unruly, empathetic, energetic, and vivacious 4-year-old son. Of course, Izuku is still dealing with his mother's death, and they're helping him overcome the pain of loss. In therapy, Izuku grapples with the fact that his estranged father is the one who indirectly caused his mother's death, but he doesn't talk about it much at home. They are also getting used to having semi-conscious plants in the apartment. Hizashi and Aizawa had thought about adopting a cat before they found Izuku, but now, with a dozen plants to care for, and some that seem to come to life with their son, they believe that having an animal that can bite the leaves would be a bad idea. Izuku's gift is activated in states of intense emotion, both positive and negative. When happy, plants seem to rejoice, shaking their leaves. When he is sad or angry, they comfort him. It's very strange to see him, but Aizawa gets used to it after a while. He never thought he'd have a knack for plants, but he and Hizashi have gone to the garden store more than ever in the past few months that Izuku has been with them. Izuku's room is already fully decorated. They have added a small shelf, a desk, and a chest of drawers, in addition to the furniture she had before. Hizashi commissioned a bunch of posters from him when he realized that he was a big fan of heroes, and now his room is filled with all of his favorite heroes. "Dad," laughs Izuku one afternoon while playing with Aizawa. "Dad, you're cheating." Aizawa looks at Izuku in shock, his eyes full of emotion as he looks down at the boy. They hadn't talked about what I should call them, Izuku, and he sticks with their names, but it's the first time she's heard him call him Dad. "I'm not." Aizawa smiles, trying to keep the excitement out of her voice. "Hizashi, tell our son I'm not cheating." Hizashi had heard everything, tears of happiness in his eyes as he sat on the floor next to both of them. Hmm, I don't know. Honey, if Izu says you cheat on him, I'll trust him, Hizashi jokes, smiling at her husband. Izu, does dad cheat on you? Izuku crosses his arms with a playful pout. Uh-huh, that's why he always wins. Hizashi laughs out loud, looking at Aizawa fondly. Honey, aren't you going to let the 4-year-old win any board games? Aizawa rolls her eyes as Hizashi kisses her cheek, and Izuku climbs onto her lap. It's a tender scene, and Aizawa wonders how he and Hizashi managed without Izuku for years. Later that day, when Izuku calls Hizashi dad over dinner, it's not just Hizashi's eyes that fill with tears of happiness. Izuku, stay with me, friend. Hizashi shouts. Izuku looks up from where he had strayed, observing a particularly interesting flower. There's a bright red ladybug on one of the leaves, and Izuku bent down to watch it climb up the petals. But Dad, look! Izuku exclaims, his eyes shining with excitement as he gazes at the ladybug. Hizashi approaches, smiling at the flower. After a year living with his son, Hizashi has become accustomed to Izuku pointing to the plants with such glee. Very well, Hizashi agrees, putting his hands on his knees. Where do you think that ladybug is going? Izuku doesn't know it, but he's glad his father is as interested as he is, watching the ladybug until it finally flies out of the plant. Izuku reaches out to gently tickle the leaves of the flower, laughing as the leaves curl around his wrist. Come on, Aizu, we're supposed to meet your dad inside, Hizashi says, rising to gently pull Izuku's hand. Reluctantly, Izuku gets up and follows his dad. They are visiting the UA, where their parents have just started working, preparing for the new school year. Shortly after adopting Izuku, Hizashi and Aizawa were invited to take special teacher training courses to join the UA faculty. Aizawa would tutor the first-year students and Hizashi was hired to teach English, as he was fluent in it. It is the first time that Izuku has visited the UA, and he has not even entered the school. The campus is beautiful, with a bright green lawn, full of flowers and trees. Izuku has just woken up from seeing the ladybug when a butterfly lands on his nose. He gasps, laughing as he tickles it before flying off and landing on a pretty yellow flower. Izuku, distracted again, breaks free from Hizashi's grip to watch the butterfly, smiling as some flowers move and become entangled in his arms. Hello, Izuku says softly. It's a pleasure to meet you all. Hizashi sighs with a loving smile, walks over, and lets his son play with the plants and insects for a while longer. It's endearing to see. Izuku is so connected to nature, but that makes it difficult to get to the sites on time. Finally, after a long while, Hizashi manages to get Izuku inside by carrying him on his shoulders. After entering the school, Izuku is fascinated by another reason. He loves nature, sure, but his other passion is heroes, and school is full of them. The first people they meet are Ectoplasm, Snipe, and Midnight, all of them in full costumes and standing discussing how to make some adjustments to a training course. Hizashi, it's good to see you, Snipe shouts, smiling at Izuku. Who is this little guy? Izuku's eyes wide open as he watches the professionals, whose faces he has on posters on the wall. He smiles beaming, stepping off Hizashi's shoulders to run toward them. I'm Izuku, and I'm 5 years old, he says proudly. Where's your gun, Mr. Snipe? How many targets can you shoot at once? Do you have your special gas, Miss Midnight? Can you put me to sleep right now? Oh, Ectoplasm. Have you ever seen a real ghost? How many clones of yourself can you create? Their excited questions smile kindly. The professionals are clearly delighted to meet him. They chat for a while until 2 other heroes approach and Izuku is surprised. One of them is Aizawa, whom Hizashi approaches to greet him, but the other is All Might and Izuku feels that he is so excited that he might explode. He stares, stunned, at the greatest hero in life, gaping. Is this little Aizawa? Asks All Might, leaning in to smile at Izuku. Izuku is so overwhelmed that he hides behind Hizashi, gaping in surprise, as he stares at the number 1 hero. Aizawa Yamada, Hizashi smiles. Yes, this is our son Izuku. Aizu, honey, do you want to say hello to All Might? Izuku peeks out from behind Hizashi's leg, looking at All Might with big eyes. He doesn't say anything, but waves at him, squealing as he crouches down. Hizashi smiles, and Aizawa leans over, carrying Izuku and bringing him to her chest. Izuku feels a little safer in his father's arms, looking at All Might curiously. Aizawa, Yamada, have you thought about what you're going to do with young Izuku while you two teach? Ectoplasm asks. UA unfortunately doesn't have daycare. Izuku is going to start school soon. Hisashi smiles proudly. We enrolled him in Semi-Elementary Academy. Many hero families enroll their children there. We thought he would make friends. That way we will all go to school at the same time. Izuku is quickly getting bored with adult conversation, his eyes scanning the hallway. He gasps slightly, pulling Aizawa before crawling to the ground and running into a room with the door open. Dude, where are you going? Hisashi calls with a laugh as Izuku pokes his head into the classroom, his eyes practically shining. Dad, there are chicks here, shouts Izuku, running inside. The heroes enter and see Izuku kneeling on the ground, staring at an incubator. It's a science classroom, and there are eggs hatching right in front of Izuku. He gawks at the glass, pressing his hands and face against it as he watches the chicks hatch from the eggs. Wow, Izuku, look what you found. Hisashi smiles, beaming, kneeling next to him. It looks like one of the classes is going to raise chicks this year. Izuku is ecstatic and Aizawa and Hisashi exchange an affectionate look, knowing that Izuku would sit there all day if he wasn't stopped. The other teachers have left the classroom and Izuku is sitting cross-legged on the floor, happily staring at the glass. Kid, do you want to come and see Dad and I use our gifts in one of the new gyms? Asks Aizawa, and Izuku turns around with shining eyes. Yes. Izuku squealed, jumping. Yes, Daddy, yes. Come on right now. Izuku grabs Aizawa's hand and pulls him out of the room, followed by Hisashi laughing. They walk down the hallway as Izuku asks her endless questions about where they're going and what they'll see. Upon arriving at the beta gym, Izuku vibrates with excitement. All the pros from before were there: Ectoplasm, Snipe, All Might, Midnight, and a few more. Shoot. All Might, go ahead, says Midnight. All Might looks anxiously at the pillars that have been created in the center of the gym, with a bit of embarrassment. Are you sure you want me to cover myself completely? Asks All Might. If I use all my power, I could destroy this entire gym. Snipe snorts, leaning on his gun with a sneer. You think you're too much, man. Shoot. All Might sighs and returns his fist. Izuku is trembling with excitement. All Might smiles and shouts, Detroit. Crush. Izuku falls backwards into Hisashi's arms as All Might's punch bounces through the gym. The huge cement blocks that were in the center are completely destroyed, and there is a huge hole in the back wall, where All Might attacked. Izuku is a little scared, but mostly excited, as he jumps to his feet, smiling brightly at hero number 1 and the others. Dad, did you see that? Izuku exclaims excitedly. The wall was blown up. All Might, you blew up the whole wall. Yes, it looks like it, All Might says, blushing a little. Sorry, Cementos. A gray-haired, square-headed hero sighs, rubbing his forehead. All right, All Might. Well, Mike, it's your turn. Izuku excitedly watches as his father heads to the center of the gym. Aizawa reaches into a bag she is carrying and puts headphones on it. Izuku looks up curiously, but the reason becomes clear when Hisashi shouts. Izuku knows the quirks of his parents, but has never seen the voice in full use. It is almost as powerful as All Might's explosion, increasing the hole in the back wall of the gym and further destroying the center. Now it's Aizawa's turn, and while Izuku has seen his father use Eraser, he's never seen him use his capture weapon so nimbly. Izuku is beyond shocked to see his father cause the same destruction in the gym without using any gifts. The other heroes test their skills, and Izuku vibrates with excitement. The gym is practically destroyed. Cementos uses his ability to fix the wall and prevent the building from collapsing. Once the last hero finishes, Izuku is dying to try himself. Dad, can I try the gym too, please? He pleads excitedly as he watches Aizawa and Hisashi exchange a glance. Sure, dude, Hisashi says. Hey guys, you might want to clear the floor. Izuku is going to try the gym. The other heroes watch curiously, but Izuku heads to the center of the gym. He rests his hand on the ground, silently invoking that all the underground roots sprout. There is silence an instant before the room explodes, with vines, roots, flowers, and other plants sprouting everywhere. Izuku watches as part of the roof collapses in the background, and All Might's punch hole reopens at the back of the gym. The ground is completely destroyed, with roots everywhere, and in the center, Izuku sits protected by a large vine tickling his nose. Shit, Snipe says, with a surprised face. Did you two know that your child could do that? He did more damage than All Might. Yes, Aizawa says calmly, though he sounds proud. He has a very strong gift. Aizu, honey, can you tell the plants to go home? If not, Cementos is going to have a hard time fixing this. Okay, Daddy. Izuku shouts, stroking the leaves and vines around him. Goodbye, guys. Slowly, the plants and roots disappear, and the gym is left in ruins. Izuku runs to his parents, unaware of the stares of the other heroes as he takes Hisashi's hand. Dad, can I go see the girls again, please? Izuku asks, forgetting about the gym. They are so cute. Sure, boy, Hisashi replies with a smile. Let's go. Izuku is shy at the front of his new classroom. She starts a few days later than the other children due to problems with paperwork, and she has a hard time showing up in front of the class. I had never had to perform before a group of people like this before. I'm Aizawa Yamato Izuku, he says quietly, bowing to the class. My gift is called Floral Call. It's a pleasure to meet you all. His new teacher sits him next to a serious boy with glasses and another with reddish and white hair. He's a little anxious to be at school, but the other kids and his teacher seem nice so far, at least because of everyone's smiles and friendly looks. The class is also small, only 15 students, so it's not as cramping as it could be. Excuse me, the boy with the glasses asks. What should we call you? Aizawa Yamato or something. It's a bit of a long name, so I didn't know if you had any preferences. By the way, I'm Ida Tenya. Nice to meet you, Ida, Izuku says politely, swaying his legs as he sits at his desk. Only Izuku is fine. I'm Todoroki Shudo, says the red and white-haired boy from the other side. This school is cute. You'll like it here. Izuku smiles at them both, happy to have such nice people sitting next to him. The teacher starts class, and Izuku listens with joy, enjoying the lessons and spending time with his new friends. On his first break, he meets a very kind girl, Yaoyorozu Momo, whose gift can create anything if he understands its chemical structure, which Izuku finds incredible. At lunchtime, she sits with her, Ida, and Shudo outside on the grass, smiling as she opens her bento box. Her parents left her a note on the cover that says, "Have a good day, we love you," which makes Izuku smile. Everyone eats happily, and Izuku gets to know his new friends better. I run so fast, says Ida proudly, pointing to the motors in her legs. Not as fast as my brother, but fast. My goal is to one day go to the UA like him. Izuku smiles and nods. My parents teach at the UA. What's your brother's name? Ida Tensei, Ida says. Who are your parents, if you don't mind me asking? I wonder if my brother was in his class. He graduated a long time ago. Izuku takes a bite of food before swallowing and replying. My dads are Present Mike and Eraserhead. Ida's eyes wide, probably at the mention of Present Mike. Eraserhead is an underground hero, so most people don't know him, but Izuku is proud to say that Present Mike is quickly approaching the top 20 heroes. Shudo and Momo also seem interested, though Shudo looks at him with a somewhat strange expression. My father is Endeavor, Shudo says quietly. I know what it's like to have a father who is a professional hero. Izuku isn't sure what Shudo means by that, but he certainly knows who Endeavor is. Truth be told, Izuku has never liked hero number 2 very much. Endeavor is powerful, but very destructive, and damages much of its natural environment with its fire in its battles against villains. My parents are not heroes, but I will be, says Momo with a smile. I've already chosen my hero name, Creati. Wow, that's great, exclaims Izuku with a smile. It's a great hero name. I haven't come up with one yet. Shudo looks at him curiously, forgetting the comment about Endeavor. What is your gift? I heard you say it in class, but you didn't say what it does. Izuku looks around, making sure no one else is watching him before he puts his hand on the ground. The eyes of his new friends widen as they see several flowers sprout from the earth, and a root curls around Izuku's arm. I can talk to plants, Izuku says, laughing as the leaves tickle his arms. And I can invoke them. Sometimes they wake up when I call them and get a little protective of me. The other day, I destroyed a gym at the UA unintentionally because of that. Cementos got a little angry. Did you wreck a gym? Says Shido, laughing a little, while Ida looks scandalized. I would have liked to see that. They continue lunch talking happily about their interests and getting to know each other. Izuku ends his first day of school happy and excited, looking forward to seeing his new friends again tomorrow. Izuku fails to make it through the first week of school without incident. Izuku is a kind spirit, his teacher tells his parents, who were summoned to an emergency meeting after a particularly stressful afternoon, and very empathetic. I think that's what caused today's incident. Izuku, dear, can you come, please? Izuku approaches from the corner of the room where he has been reading and sits in a chair without looking at his parents. He has a red face and hunched shoulders. Their body language betrays their anxiety. Izuku, we're not mad at you, Hisashi says calmly, wanting to reassure his son. Just tell us what happened, kid. Izuku slurps, rubbing his eyes. Some children were picking flowers at lunchtime. I told them to stop, and they didn't listen to me. So, what happened? Asks Aizawa, although she already has a pretty clear idea, given the destruction that the principal had shown them before entering the school. And I don't know, Izuku shouts sadly. It was as if they were yelling at me. I couldn't control my Quirk. I had roots grow everywhere and ruin the baseball field. I am sorry. Aizawa and Hisashi exchange a glance with Izuku's teacher. Aizu, honey, were the flowers screaming? Asks Hisashi, with a worried air. Izuku nods, slurping while rubbing his nose. Why, yes. They don't speak like people, but I can still feel them. My heart hurt a lot, Dad. I'm sorry that happened to you, Izuku, Aizawa says softly. Don't worry about the baseball field. Once you calm down, you can make the roots disappear, right? Izuku nods, still looking unhappy. But I scared those kids. Izuku, everything is going to be okay, Hisashi reassures him. You'll get rid of your roots, as Dad said, and you'll be able to apologize to the other students. Maybe if you explain why you got angry, they won't pluck the flowers again either. Your parents are right, Izuku, his teacher says calmly. You're not in trouble, but we need to repair today's damage. Also, Aizawa, Yamada, we have a court counselor here, if you're interested. They will be happy to collaborate with Izuku. Thanks, but we've got Izuku in peculiarity therapy now, Aizawa says calmly, looking at her anxious son. We will call them later tonight and schedule an emergency appointment to talk about what happened today. And, of course, we will pay for any damage that has occurred to school property. It won't be necessary, says the teacher, crossing her hands on the desk. Believe me, this is not the first incident with a Quirk causing significant damage. Quirk fires alone cause enough dangers each week. This school is privately funded, as you know, and the tuition helps cover insurance expenses for this kind of thing. In the end, there was no damage here. Izuku feels a little exposed as the adults talk, and gets up from his chair to climb onto Hisashi's lap. Hisashi reaches into his pocket and hands Izuku a small puzzle, giving him something to do as they continue the conversation with his master. Izuku eventually stops paying attention to the conversation, concentrating on the puzzle until the fatigue of the day overpowers him and falls asleep on Hisashi's chest. It has been an eventful first week at the school, no doubt. The next day is Friday and Izuku is sitting outside having lunch with his friends when he notices that everyone is looking at him strangely. Do I have something on my face? She asks, and Momo giggles, pointing to Izuku's head. He looks up, bewildered for a moment, when he feels something move in his hair. He sighs to himself, realizing that, once again, a bird has chosen his head as a place to perch. Lately it has been happening very frequently. Oh, she's fine, Izuku says, reaching out to gently stroke the bird's head. They like me because I smell like trees and forest, I think. Is that why those plants do that? Asks Shido curiously, and Izuku looks down and sees flowers curling around his legs. It looks like they're trying to kidnap you. Yes, Izuku laughs, feeling the blades of grass tangle around his wrists. Sometimes it's a problem. Once my parents had to argue with a tree to get me back. They said he had me 15 meters high. You're like a forest spirit. Momo smiles, looking at the bird and the grass. Maybe that could be your hero name, a name that means spirit of the forest. Something like Gaia, which means Mother Earth. Or you could opt for something really heroic like Captain Planet. What do you think? Izuku simply smiles, eating his lunch as animals and plants curl around him. It takes him a while to get up when he finishes eating. Some roots have become entangled in his legs, and the bird is still in his hair. Hey, could you please release me? Izuku asks the plants. They seem to hesitate for a moment before reluctantly letting go and returning to Earth. The bird also flies away, leaving Izuku shaking his hair. Hurry up, Izuku, we're going to be late, shouts Momo, waving his hand. Izuku turns around and sees Ida, Shudo, and Momo waiting for him, and his heart fills with joy. He has friends, an incredible gift, and two great parents. Izuku is lucky. I'm coming, he shouts with a smile, running after his friends, unaware of the flowers blooming beneath his feet as he runs. By the time Izuku is 7, the people in his life are already accustomed to the vines and leaves curling around his arms every time he sits on the grass, to the roots curling around his feet. They are even used to small animals that treat it like a forest tree. Sometimes, when Izuku walks, plants and flowers sprout at his feet, as if they want to reach him. So it's no surprise that Izuku attracts attention in public at times. Hisashi is busy patrolling, so Aizawa takes Izuku to the park near his apartment. Izuku is happily sitting on the grass, with the plants already converging on his legs. Aizawa sighs fondly at the sight of a stray cat curled up next to her son on the ground. Dad, look, Izuku says laughing softly, scratching his head. It's so sweet and smooth. I think you live here. Can you come home with us? Aizawa uses every ounce of her inner strength and resolve to try and say no to Izuku's adorable face. But then the cat curls up in Izuku's lap, and Aizawa knows it's over. If she wants to come with us, sure, says Aizawa, already making plans to stop by a pet store on her way home. It'll be a big responsibility for you. Are you ready to take care of her? Izuku's eyes sparkle as the cat purrs in his lap, scratching her ears. Uh-huh, I'll call her Luna. I'll take great care of her, Dad, I promise. Aizawa offers to hold Luna while Izuku goes out to play, and Izuku carefully gets up as the plants and roots sink into the earth. Izuku heads for the swings, where another purple-haired boy is sitting on the swings, brushing the ground with his feet. Izuku frowns at the sight of him. He seems to be about the same age as him, but he seems to be alone in the park. Hello, Izuku says cheerfully, waving when the boy looks up. Do you mind if I swing next to you? The boy shakes his head and Izuku jumps onto the swing, moving his legs a little to make it move. It feels a little weird to have fun while the boy next to him is sad, so Izuku stops and looks at him with a smile. My name is Izuyamada Izuku, he says, as his shoes drag the ground as he slows his swing. What's your name? The boy looks at him, and Izuku grimaces. The boy's eyes are tired, with large dark circles under them, as if he hadn't slept in weeks. Izuku has seen his father like this after his night patrols on underground hero shifts, but it's strange to see him in a boy like him. Shinso Hitoshi, Hitoshi says quietly. You probably shouldn't talk to me. People don't like me. Izuku frowns. There's nothing rude or wrong with the other guy. He just looks sad and tired, and that only makes Izuku want to be his friend. You seem nice, Izuku says cheerfully, watching the other boy's eyes widen in surprise. Do you want to play with me? I'm a little bored here alone. My dad is here, but he's too big to go to the park, and he's carrying our cat in his arms. Hitoshi stares at him for a moment before saying, You want to play with me? He doesn't phrase it as a question, but Izuku nods. Uh-huh, we could do a swing race. I get really high on the swings, what about you? Hitoshi smiles at him, and Izuku smiles back, relieved to see him. They swung together for a while until they both got bored. Izuku jumped up and grabbed Hitoshi's hand, who seemed surprised by the contact. Let's go. Izuku laughs, pulling Hitoshi into the grass. I want to show you something. They sit down and Izuku looks towards the park bench where his father is still sitting, petting Luna. Reassured at the sight of his father, Izuku puts a hand on the grass and watches as Hitoshi widens his eyes as he sees the grass and roots begin to cover his legs. "This is my gift," says Izuku enthusiastically, as flowers and leaves wrap around his arms. "It's called floral call. Plants and roots they cling to me." "Wow," Hitoshi says quietly. "It's beautiful. Do you ever have? Does it hurt?" Izuku frowns, thinking of all the times his gift has caused harm. "No, not really. But I have to be careful, because even if it doesn't hurt me, it can be very destructive. I almost broke an entire building once." "So you know what it's like," Hitoshi says quietly, "to have a dangerous gift." Izuku's interest is piqued, looking at his new friend. "More or less. What is your gift, Toshi?" Hitoshi blushes a little at the nickname and shifts on the grass before muttering, "Do you promise you won't hate me or run away?" "Why would I do that?" asks Izuku, confused. "There are no bad quirks, just bad people. That's what my parents say. Your quirk won't make me hate you." Hitoshi nods, biting his lip before almost whispering, "It's brainwashing. Yes, if I ask a question and someone answers it, I can control it." Izuku's jaw drops, his eyes shining as he begins to speak enthusiastically. "It's great. Oh my God, surely you could do a lot of great things with that gift. Have you ever tried using it with more than one person? Does it work with animals or only with people? Does it have to be verbal activation or does it work with writing? How long does control last? How much control do you have? Ooh, you should try it with me. I want to see what it feels like." Hitoshi stares at Izuku, gaping, as Izuku brims with excitement. His face cracks an uncertain smile, moving a little closer to Izuku. "Aren't you afraid of me?" he asks quietly, wringing his hands. "Everyone in the school does. My parents say it's not a bad oddity, but the other kids and teachers are very cruel about it." "Of course I'm not afraid," Izuku exclaims. "You're not scary at all, Toshi. It's not very kind when your teachers and friends are mean to you. Maybe you could talk to your parents and come to my school. No one there is cruel to oddities, not even weird ones like mine." Hitoshi looks hopefully at Izuku, smiling even more. "Yes, maybe it will." Really? Do you want me to use my gift with you?" "Yes," screams Izuku, forgetting for a moment that they shouldn't try to use their gifts in public. Izuku can't turn off his, so he's right, but he definitely shouldn't ask a stranger to test his gift on him in the middle of a public park. He's too excited to think it through. "Okay," Hitoshi says. I won't make you do anything weird or anything, I promise. I trust you." Izuku smiles, knowing that her father is also around if something happens. Hitoshi sits across from Izuku and asks, "What's your favorite color?" "Green dash." A sense of confusion invades Izuku's mind. Everything is quiet, and noise is blocked. He cannot move or speak, and he thinks he hears Hitoshi's voice in the distance. However, he is distracted, not by Hitoshi, but by the cacophony he hears in his own head. Hundreds, no, thousands of voices resonate in the back of his mind. They are not exactly words, but rather feelings, impressions. Izuku feels like he's a network, as if he's connected to something around him. Mentally, he turns and faces what looks like a spider web of bright light, reaching out to touch the center. He almost reaches her when someone shakes his shoulder, pulling it out of his mind and brainwashing. "Zuku," his father's panicked voice asks, and Izuku hears someone crying. He opens his eyes blinking and sees that it is almost completely covered with vines and leaves on the ground. Hitoshi sobs beside him, looking desperate, and his father is at his side, with Luna the cat curled up in one arm. "Hello, Daddy," Izuku says sleepily, reaching out to stroke his head. "Alas, that was very strange. Toshi, does that always happen to you when you use your gift?" "And no," Hitoshi sobs in his hands. "I'm sorry, I don't know what happened." Aizawa looks anxiously at both boys, helping Izuku to his feet as the roots and flowers recede before turning to Hitoshi. "You're fine, boy," Aizawa says quietly, placing a delicate hand on Hitoshi's shoulder. "Nothing is wrong with you, you understand? Izuku is fine." "Yes, I'm fine," Izuku replies, beaming, reaching over to hug Hitoshi and rubbing his back. "I think it was my gift that became so rare, not yours. I heard a lot of people in my head, but I didn't hear you well." "I heard them too," Hitoshi stammers. "They weren't voices, it was like—" Izuku nods, looking at Aizawa, who looks anxious. It was like I was connected to a big network. I think maybe it was the plants and flowers. That's what I call them. I've never heard them like that. All right, Izu, I think it's time for an appointment with a psychologist, Aizawa says calmly. And you? Boy, that gift you have is quite powerful. Are you working on it with someone? Hitoshi shakes his head, rubbing his eyes. My parents can't afford peculiarity therapy. Aizawa nods, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small card. Izuku recognizes it as his hero's license. Hitoshi, wide-eyed, looks at Aizawa as if he had hung the moon. You, Yuri Eraserhead, Hitoshi gasps. You are my favorite hero, sir. Izuku, is Eraserhead your dad? Izuku smiles beaming, excited that his new friend recognizes his dad. Yes, and present Mike is my other dad. Hitoshi is stunned, and Aizawa smiles before saying, How about we walk you home, kid? I'm sure your parents are worried about you. A short time later, they are outside a modest-looking apartment building. An anxious-looking woman with purple hair like Hitoshi's runs to hug him. You left me very worried, she says excitedly, turning to look at Aizawa and Izuku. Izuku carries Luna in his arms, and Aizawa carries them both. Mom, this is Eraserhead, Hitoshi whispers, watching her open her eyes wide. He says he can help me train for my gift. Can I, Mom, please? Aizawa takes out a small piece of folded paper and hands it to the stunned woman. Here, ma'am. This is my civilian contact information. If your child needs help, please call. At the very least, I know that our children will want to play together again. Thank you, he whispers, bending down to take Hitoshi's hand. We'll be in touch. 2 weeks later, Izuku is thrilled to discover that Hitoshi not only receives gift therapy, but has also been enrolled in his elementary school. Just as Izuku had said, no one treats Hitoshi badly for his gift, and he fits into their small group of friends. Hisashi and Aizawa have even given Izuku permission to host his first sleepover. Shudo, Momo, Ida, and Hitoshi will go, so Izuku has spent Saturday afternoon helping to prepare the apartment. Can you believe Endeavor made us sign a non-disclosure agreement for a children's sleepover? Snorts Hisashi from the computer where he's talking to Aizawa. He also knows that we are professionals, right? Aizawa rolls her eyes, scratching Luna's ears, curled up in her lap. At least let the child come. It took me half an hour to convince him over the phone. Even Yaoyorozu had a harder time convincing. Izuku ignores this and prepares the room with futons, blankets, and extra pillows. His father had prepared a bunch of snacks that were already on the table for his friends, and Izuku picked out half a dozen of his favorite movies for them to choose from. Hisashi went out to buy more board games, so they'll have a lot of things to do. Izuku was practically jumping in his seat when the doorbell rang. He ran, opened the door, and smiled beaming at the sight of Ida and Shudo standing in front of a young man Izuku recognized as Ida's older brother, Tensei. You're ingenium, gasps Izuku, remembering what Ida had told them. Tinya, you didn't tell me that your brother would bring them both. Tensei smiles as Shudo and Ida enter, both taking off their shoes. It's nice to see you again, kid. Mike, Eraser. Tensei, hello. Hisashi shouts. Thank you for bringing them. Todoroki, Ida, can leave their bags in Izuku's room. Ida nods and immediately heads to Izuku's room, but Shudo looks curious, sweeping the entire apartment. Hisashi, Aizawa, and Tensei chat for a while the three boys immediately start playing, and Izuku, excited, shows them his room. Shortly after Tensei left, the doorbell rang again and Momo's chauffeur dropped her off. He walked in with a smile, bowing to Izuku's parents before handing them a large gift bag. My parents said this is for you, Momo says formally. Please enjoy it. Thank you, little listener, Hisashi replies with a smile. The boys are in Izuku's room. Go have fun. Hitoshi arrives a few minutes later, and as soon as his mother leaves, the apartment is filled with noise. Aizawa loves her son and his friends very much, but she begins to regret letting 4 other 7-year-olds into her small apartment. I'm the General Venom Slayer, Ida shouts from the couch, wearing backwards shorts that mimic demon horns. I am here to rule the world. Ha ha. I, Queen Creati, will stop you with my team of brave knights, says Momo, her hair pulled back in a very messy bun that Hisashi assumes is supposed to be a crown. Shudo, Hitoshi, and Izuku are behind her with a strange variety of weapons. Izuku with an empty paper towel tube, Shudo with a ruler, and Hitoshi with some plastic ninja daggers that Izuku had in his room. They're going to destroy our house. Aizawa sighs quietly as Ida jumps off the couch, causing all the children to laugh out loud. Luna has long since hidden under a bed because of the noise, and Hisashi smiles affectionately at them. Oh, everything will be fine, Hisashi smiles. Also, have you noticed? There are no plants. Everything is quiet here. As the children scream and scream, Aizawa looks around and realizes that her husband is right. Izuku is so distracted having fun with his friends that none of the floors of the apartment seem to approach him or react, which is very unusual. Interesting, Aizawa murmurs as the kids abandon their hero game to put on one of Izuku's All Might movies. I guess it needs to be added to the notes for the Quirk counselor. Later, after a pizza dinner, Hisashi telling them scary stories with the lights off and a flashlight in his face, and watching a quiet children's movie to calm down. The 5 children are asleep on futons in the living room. They're adorable, Hisashi whispers, snapping a picture of them with his phone, even though I thought they'd last more than 10. Let's be thankful for the little mercies, Aizawa says, turning off the lights as they head to their own bedroom. We'll really be able to sleep tonight. You're in charge of breakfast, Hisashi yawns, closing his eyes. I can't make all the pancakes by myself. Izuku is 10 years old when he completely loses control of his gift for the first time since it manifested. Since Hitoshi brainwashed him 3 years earlier, Izuku has been more connected to the mental network, the one that connects him to the plants and other flora around him. He imagines it as a series of roots. If you touch one, you can hear it all. He keeps the discovery almost to himself. Plants don't talk, not exactly, but it's enough for there to always be a buzzing in your head, a connection to the living things around you. Plants are increasingly seeking him out, and he also attracts more wildlife. Izuku has had a few more incidents at school where he accidentally damages school property, and his gift kicks in when he shouldn't. It all begins when the anniversary of his mother's death approaches. Izuku is still going to therapy years later, but that doesn't mean he's over the event. He's accepted it and worked hard to get over it. But seeing his villainous father burn down his mother and destroy their home isn't exactly an easy thing to overcome. Izuku doesn't even have a photo of his mother. Everything they had, including family photos, burned down when Blaze, their father, destroyed the apartment building. Izuku barely remembers his mother's face, but he holds on to her memory as best he can. This time of year is particularly difficult for him, closed in on himself and much quieter than usual. His parents already know that they will wait for him, as do his friends, and Izuku takes the day off from school with his parents' permission to visit his mother's grave in the cemetery. He goes every year to pay his respects, and this year is the first time his parents let him stay alone for a while. Hisashi and Aizawa initially accompany him to pay their respects. Meanwhile, Izuku places the steamed buns from the shop that his mother always liked as an offering on his grave and lights the incense. Thank you, Ms. Midoriya, Hisashi says, hands folded. Izuku is wonderful and we love him very much. We will always protect and love him, adds Aizawa, and we will be the best parents we can be. Izuku is always moved by the respect that his parents have for his mother, and when he finishes, they tell him in a low voice that they will wait for him in front of the cemetery so that he can be alone for a while. When his parents leave, Izuku kneels in front of his grave and tears fill his eyes. Hi, Mom, Izuku says in a broken voice. I miss you so much. He sits in front of his mother's grave for almost an hour, just talking. He tells her everything that has happened in recent years and all the moments she remembers, exciting and every day. Finally, he gets up, with a headache from crying so much, and returns to the cemetery, where his parents are waiting for him. Let's go home, honey, Hisashi murmurs, leaning over and kissing his son's forehead. Aizawa takes Izuku's hand, and they walk back to the car. Izuku remains silent all the way home. That night, Izuku moves dinner on the plate, but he doesn't eat much and asks permission to get up from the table early. His parents share a worried look, but they let Izuku go to his room, where he changes into his more comfortable pajamas and curls up in his bed. It's not fair. Izuku's mother never hurt anyone. He was kind and sweet, and he happened to meet Izuku's terrible father. Midoriya Hisashi, also known as Blaze, died the same night as his mother, but Izuku does not mourn him. She does not mourn the man who killed her mother. Sobbing, Izuku doesn't notice the ivy on his bedside table creeping up on him, its vines and leaves caressing his hair. They wrap around his arms and body, wrapping him in a cocoon. It's not fair. Izuku whispers into his pillow, as leaves run through his hair as if trying to calm him down. I just want my mom back. She cries on her pillow, falling into a restless sleep, with the vines and leaves tangling in her arms and legs. He has a terrible dream, a repetition of the night his mother died. He sees her, huddled against the kitchen counter as she shields Izuku from the fire. His father yells at him, furious, and Izuku's vision darkens as the fire burns in front of him. When Izuku wakes up from his slumber, he is confused. There is absolute chaos around him. Screams and screams are heard, and he blinks as he realizes that he is about 9 meters off the ground, wrapped in a tree branch. He floats over a street and realizes to his horror that he is being dragged by a moving tree. He sees the roots digging in and destroying the pavement, and Izuku looks to himself to realize that there are vines and leaves intertwined around him, and he is completely clinging to the tree. The screams come from people in the street as the tree destroys cars and things in its path, heading straight for the forest. Izuku tries to break free, but the vines and branches only tighten around him until he gives up. The tree carrying him passes the tree line of the forest, depositing Izuku in a tall oak tree, which wraps its branches around him and cradles him like a small child. Izuku becomes the bark of the tree and cries. She doesn't know if she's still dreaming, but the rush of cold night air and the way the tree now cradles its thinner branches in her hair, it all feels very real. The nightmare had felt so real, so visceral and terrifying, that it was as if Izuku was reliving that terrible night. She wondered how much damage she had caused that night. She wondered what her parents were thinking at that moment. Terrified and alone, Izuku huddled against the tree and cried. Hours later, the sun peeks through the forest, and Izuku wakes up, rubbing his eyes. He is still in the gigantic oak tree, but the branches have loosened. Izuku looks at himself, surprised to see that the plant in his bedroom at home is still coiled around his arm, the leaves crunching a little. A thick branch fastens it to its legs, presumably so that it would not fall during the night. Thank you, Izuku says hoarsely, his voice breaking from crying. The tree creaks, dropping leaves into Izuku's hair, making him smile. I appreciate it, but I need to go home. My parents must be very worried about me. Could you please get me off? The tree seems to hesitate, but Izuku feels himself being lowered to the ground. As soon as his feet touch the forest floor, the branches recede and the tree returns to normal, motionless. However, the vine in his bedroom wraps around his arms, almost as if he has a tattoo, so close to his body. Izuku reaches into his pockets and grimaces when he realizes he doesn't have his phone. He has no idea where he is, or where the tree took him last night, or where to go. He is surprised that his parents have not yet found him, which makes him anxiously wonder how far he is from home. He's a little embarrassed that a nightmare has caused his gift to react like this, but that's a problem for another time. Right now, she needs to find food and water and figure out how to get home. Hey, can anyone help me? He asks the forest. I'm lost. Izuku's eyes widen as he sees a squirrel come down from the tree, wagging its tail and looking at him with nervous ears. Izuku kneels. The vines that wrapped around his arm reach out to stroke the squirrel's head. She chatters, climbs up Izuku's arm, and curls up on his shoulder. Hello, Izuku says sweetly. I guess you won't be able to help me. Do you know how to get out of here? The squirrel sniffs near its ear, settling down before it starts wiping its tail. Izuku smiles fondly, deciding to take a direction and walk. His stomach churns with guilt, knowing that his parents are probably very worried. As he walks through the forest, he comes across a clean-looking stream where he drinks water and then eats some wild berries from a bush. It's strange, but Izuku doesn't feel as much panic as he should. He feels strangely at home, as if nothing there is going to hurt him. As he walks, he has picked up a bird that now nests in his hair, a couple of butterflies, and his companion squirrel still on his shoulders. However, what intrigues Izuku the most are the vines that wrap around his arms. You can't see the plant's roots, and they're so tight around your arms that it should hurt. Instead, it's almost as if the vines are part of his skin, attached to him now. Izuku has the feeling that he is semi-permanent, if not entirely. He feels a bit like Snow White as he walks through the woods, with all the kind creatures following him. Feel as if you are in a dream as you watch the flowers bloom as you pass by. Listen to the joyful singing of birds and the beautiful sounds of the forest. He wants to see his parents, but he also wants to sit on the forest floor and immerse himself in it, to merge with the cacophony of sounds he hears. The squirrel sniffs against his ear and Izuku laughs, widening his eyes when he sees a man-made dirt road suddenly appear in front of him. Oh, we must almost be at the start by now. Izuku gasps as the animals chatter around him. Thank you all very much. The animals jump away, one by one, until only the squirrel remains, which strokes Izuku with its snout before jumping into the distance. The ivy remains wrapped in his arms, moving a little on its own as Izuku walks to where he assumes the edge of the forest is. He is relieved when he finally arrives, and when he looks outside, he sees that he is still close to the city. He walked for about 10 minutes before he heard someone calling him. As he turned, he saw his parents, desperate, running towards him. Despite not feeling in danger, Izuku felt immense relief and ran into his arms. Aizawa arrives first, hugging Izuku tightly, giving him the strongest hug he has ever received from his father. Hisashi joins him no later. Thank God you're fine, Aizawa says in a broken voice, almost on the verge of tears. We've been looking for you all night, Izuku. I'm sorry, Izuku slurps, melting into his parents' embrace. I didn't mean to. We know, Hisashi murmurs, as broken as Aizawa. Honey, it's okay. How much do you remember? Izuku steps away, wiping his eyes. I had a nightmare. About Blaze and my mother. And then I woke up and a tree was leading me into the woods. I think I destroyed a street again, sorry. Hisashi grimaces, exchanging a strange look with her husband before looking back at Izuku. Honey, that's not all that happened. Izuku blinks, confused, before asking, what do you mean? The plant in your room, the ivy. Aizawa begins, looking at Izuku's arms, where the plant still wraps around him. It enveloped you completely. We could barely see your eyes. Hisashi tapped you on the shoulder to wake you up, and it was like you exploded, Hisashi says quietly, much to Izuku's surprise. Your eyes, they turned a strange cloudy color, and the plant-like. He walked you to the window. By the time we looked down, there was a tree growing in the middle of the street. There are no trees near our apartment, kid. We think you grew one, Aizawa concludes. He is no longer there, of course, but he caused great damage in the street. Luckily, Cementos has already fixed it. Izuku feels a little dizzy as his parents talk. Growing a giant tree, the ivy around her arms is still there, crunching a little as Aizawa speaks. Izuku still feels as if he is dreaming, leaning forward to rest his head against his father's chest. I want to go home, Izuku murmurs. I'm tired, Dad. We know, Aizawa says softly. But you were missing for 13 hours. We need to be examined in the hospital. In addition, due to the material damage, we will also have to talk to the police to give them an official report. Izuku grimaces, gently touching the vines on his arms, which respond by shivering against him. No, they will cut the vines, right? The ivy didn't do anything wrong. It's just trying to protect me. I don't want you hurt her. Hisashi and Aizawa exchange another look, but they both nod. They won't. We promise, Hisashi says quietly, looking at his son, leaves and vines around his arms and branches and leaves in his hair, looking like a kidnapped forest spirit. Come on, Aizu, let's get checked out. 5 years passed. The ivy never leaves Izuku's arms, remaining coiled around him. It never withers, never loses leaves, and seems to be always awake, as if it were in constant motion. Izuku feels more connected than ever to nature, spending hours closing his eyes and feeling the connection that exists in the back of his mind. the network he discovered years ago when Hitoshi brainwashed him. The network, the connection, is bright and exciting, and by taking refuge in his mind and focusing on it, Izuku can feel, well, everything. The fluttering of butterflies miles away, the pulsations between the roots of different plants, the delicate balance of nature around them. Since the incident of his nightmare at the age of 10, Izuku has not accidentally grown a giant tree or been kidnapped by the forest. His gift counselor's theory is that the ivy that now lives coiled around him is a kind of protection, keeping him safe and preventing his gift from getting out of control again. Izuku survives in high school, still at Academy with his friends. He, Ida, Hitoshi, Shudo, and Momo get together at least once a week outside of school, if not more, and Izuku loves spending time with his friends. When you turn 15, it's time for the UA entrance exams. Izuku is a recommended student, along with Shudo and Momo, so they sit for exams early. Hitoshi and Ida go the following week, all eagerly awaiting the results. The UA entrance exams were difficult, but Izuku was relieved to pass with honors. He was not among the best, but he was among the top 10. To his excitement, all of his friends also passed and will join him in Class 1A, which his father teaches. It will be a bit weird to have his parents as teachers, but Izuku doesn't mind the idea. Having his friends in class will help him, and he's also excited to meet new people. The first day of school comes faster than Izuku might have anticipated, and soon he's in front of the mirror in his room, dressing in his new uniform. He rolls up his sleeves to his elbows, leaving room for the vines on his arms to breathe and explore. After a quick breakfast with their parents, they get in the car and head to the UA. Izuku is practically jumping with excitement. He has grown up at the UA, yes, but it is one thing to visit his parents' work and quite another to be a student. He heads to Class 1A with his father, beaming to see that some of his friends are already there. Hitoshi is lying with his head on the desk, half asleep, while Ida sits excitedly in the front row, his notebooks and pencils already at the ready. "Izuku," says Ida cheerfully, "you're here? I'm so glad we're in the same class." "Me too, Tenya." Izuku smiles, with a faint sneer as he sees Hitoshi completely asleep. "I guess someone doesn't share our excitement. Are Momo and Shudo here yet?" Aizawa prepares to sit at the front of the room while they talk. Hitoshi finally wakes up from his nap to talk to them. Shudo and Momo appear a few minutes later, and the five begin to talk animatedly at their desks. "Who else do you think will be in our class?" asks Momo, clapping enthusiastically. "It's not that I don't love them all, but it would be great to add a girl to our group." Izuku is sitting at Hitoshi's desk, the vines in his arms twisting and the leaves crunching with excitement, reacting to Izuku's energy. "Do you think we'll do some quirky exercise today?" asks Shudo. "I haven't been using fire much lately." Izuku looks at his friend with compassion as his spirits dip a little. Shudo had opened up to them over the years about his father's intense training in his gift, about his mother being committed to an asylum, and about the death of his older brother. They do their best to support him, but it's hard when Endeavor is practically untouchable as hero number 2. "They'll be fine," Hitoshi says firmly. "You all will be. His gifts, they don't need to rely on anyone else to use them. Can you promise me something? Don't tell anyone what my gift is until after we do the evaluations. If not, I'll be at a disadvantage." Everyone promises and keeps talking as the class fills up. Ida seems to have made it her point to greet all her companions as she entered. Momo excitedly runs to talk to a girl with pink skin and another who seems completely invisible. Hitoshi and Shudo don't talk to anyone, and Izuku is distracted by the leaves that start moving in his arms. "Calm down," Izuku murmurs to them, and they shudder a little. "We'll be fine." After a while, the whole class is present, all 20, and Aizawa starts the class. Izuku sighs at how intimidated some of his classmates are by his father. Aizawa is not scary or anything. It is simply intense, and Izuku has a hard time reconciling his tender and kind father with the fear shown by some of his classmates. Their father tells them that it's time for Quirk assessments and that they'll skip the UA opening ceremony, much to the surprise of many students. Izuku and his friends don't react. They just lead the class to the locker room to put on their gym uniforms. Quirk assessment tests are conducted outside, on the ground. and Izuku is immediately distracted by the sight of a large, old maple tree on the grass. He must be at least 100 years old, and all he wants is to run to him and touch his trunk. Izuku is so engrossed in the tree that he misses the start of the tryouts and misses one of his new teammates throwing a baseball over 700 yards with his gift. Izuku doesn't even realize he's walking away until he feels someone tug at his arm. Izuku looks up and sees Shudo watching him with concern, realizing that he has moved quite far away. He notices that he has some insects and plants curled up around him and heads towards the maple. Izuku, you're straying, Shudo murmurs, tugging at his sleeve. Come on, it's almost your turn. But Izuku protests, looking up at the tree with a sigh. Okay, I'm sorry. Shudo pulls Izuku back, and he, embarrassed, takes the ball away from his father. The vines on her arms envelop her before throwing her into the air. He lands in the trees in the distance, and his father says, 500 yards. Not bad, kid. Next. Izuku is distracted during the rest of the tests, not even paying attention to his father. The huge old tree occupies most of his thoughts, with its pretty red leaves, and longing to climb and climb, to curl up in its branches. Izuku, wake up, Hitoshi murmurs, nudging him on the shoulder. You're a space cadet today. Izuku blinks and sees half the class staring at him, noticing that the vines on his arms are moving curiously and there is a butterfly in his nose. I'm sorry, he says shyly, carefully moving the butterfly toward his finger so it can fly away safely. It's that maple over there. It distracts me. Izuku, come on. It's your turn, shouts Aizawa, and Izuku blushes when he remembers that he is still in class. Pay attention during the next set of exercises, striving to stay focused on the activities you're doing. Finally, they take turns completing an obstacle course, and Izuku's attention falters again. Another student, the one who threw the ball first, uses his gift of explosion to overcome obstacles. It's noisy, and Izuku can sense the disturbances it causes in the air around him. He's motionless with Ida when one of the boy's shots misses, passing the track and straight for the maple Izuku admired. Izuku gasps in excruciating pain, falling to his knees as he watches in horror at a huge hole in the side of the tree and the creaking of the wood. He reaches out as the vines around him tremble, but he can do nothing but watch the tree collapse. Izuku, shouts Ida, are you okay? Izuku, tears welling in his eyes, watches the fallen tree as pain and agony tear him apart. He feels the roots and nearby plants almost screaming. The old tree's energy just disappeared suddenly. He's dead, Izuku says in a choked voice, clenching his fists to the ground. Roots and flowers tangle in her arms and legs. The vine she always carries in her arms slide down her face. It's as if the earth is trying to claim him, as if rooting Izuku to use his energy and replace the huge hole left by the now-dead tree. Izuku, shouts Momo, and Izuku looks up and sees his friends prowling around him and his father running. The rest of the class watches with a confused face, but Izuku is simply hurt. Come on, wake up, Hitoshi says. Shudo, can you use some of your ice? Put it around his neck, maybe pull him out of this. Izuku feels a chill in his neck and gasps. The roots and flowers suddenly disappear underground. He feels clearer, but the pain lingers inside him. The fallen tree is the only thing he sees. Izuku, his father says, extending a hand and helping him to his feet. Are you okay? Izuku nods tremblingly, knowing that he is probably pale. The vines twist and flutter around him, still agitated. Why yes, it's just. He killed him, Dad. I felt it. Izuku's gaze falls on the red-eyed blonde boy, the one who accidentally destroyed the tree. She knows it wasn't on purpose, but she can't help but feel some anger. Everything feels unbalanced around him, and he tries to disconnect from the mental network, hoping to put himself back together. Hitoshi, take him to Recovery Girl, Aizawa says firmly, and Izuku can hear the hesitant concern in his voice. Izuku, I'll see you later. Hitoshi takes Izuku to the reclaimer's office, both of them silently, as they walk to the medical wing. Izuku has a headache. The vines on his arms finally calm down. Hitoshi holds a steady hand on his arm, gently guiding him toward the healing hero. Come in, darling. Recovery Girl says when she sees him. What happened? Hitoshi explains the situation to him, while Izuku practically falls asleep in a hospital bed. He feels Recovery Girl's kiss on his forehead, and a wave of exhaustion invades him, and he soon falls asleep in bed. When he wakes up again, he grimaces at the sight of both of his parents standing by his bed, looking at him anxiously, both obviously relieved when he opens his eyes. "Boy, you've been unconscious most of the day," Hisashi says worriedly. "How are you feeling?" Izuku thinks about it, sat up with a grimace. "Okay, was I really unconscious all day?" "Yes," Aizawa says, sitting on the edge of his hospital bed. "You missed the afternoon training. Bakugo didn't want to crash into that tree, you know? It was an accident." Izuku grimaces as he recalls the agony he felt in the explosion. "I know, it's just, that tree was so old. I had so many things related to him. When he died, it was as if the whole forest was screaming at me. I'm sorry I made a fuss in class, Dad." Aizawa says quietly, putting an arm around Izuku's shoulders. "You know I don't care. I just want you to be okay. Your father and I were very worried about you today." "I'm sorry," Izuku repeats, resting his head on his father's shoulder. "I don't quite understand my connection to the forest, not entirely. It is more intense in certain places." "We'll help you figure it out," Hisashi says, sitting on the other side of Izuku. "But it's time to go home, kid. We'll make your favorite dish for dinner, shall we?" "All right," Izuku murmurs, looking at the vines that wrapped around his arms as they twisted and moved. The pain of loss he felt before still gripped his chest, like a cave, and he wonders how he will be able to overcome battles as a hero if something like this can knock him unconscious for hours. When his father told the class that they would be going on a field trip to the USJ, Izuku didn't expect them to end up fighting villains. It had all started normally. They met Rescue Hero 13, entered the USJ, and learned about the facility. But less than 5 minutes after entering, dozens of villains appeared and Aizawa began to fight them, alone. Ida managed to escape to ask the AU for help, but the others had been scattered around the facility by a villain with some sort of warping gift. Izuku ended up in the center of the facility, so close that he could see his father fighting the villains in the distance. From what he could see, there was no one of his kind around him, but there were no villains either. Izuku considers his options. His father is amazing, the best, and a very skilled fighter, but he can't fight nonstop. 13 had been incapacitated by another villain, one with amputated hands, which meant that Aizawa was now fighting completely alone. Izuku makes a decision. He hasn't abandoned his gift yet, ever, but he knows that if he connects with the mental web long enough, he can access unprecedented power. He remembers the gym he destroyed as a child, when Snipe said he had caused more damage than All Might. Without considering the risks, Izuku sits in a meditative posture, closing his eyes and concentrating solely on the energy network that exists in the depths of his thoughts, which he can use to reach the deepest roots that run beneath this building. "Help me," Izuku thinks, feeling it fade away. "I call you. Recover it. Reclaim this place for the forest." Izuku feels a surge of power inside him and opens his eyes to an absolute massacre. It is at least 4.5 meters tall, with a huge root around its waist, and there are vines and other roots that explode under it. Izuku can feel everything, connected to every part of them. He touches a root and sees the image of some of his teammates cornered by villains elsewhere in the USJ. Pulling on it, he throws roots that explode from the ground, subduing all the villains in the area. He then focuses on his father, shooting as many roots and vines as he can, taking down all the villains in the area. He fails to catch the warp villain or the one with the severed hands, but everyone else falls almost too easily. "Izuku," he hears his father whisper, sounding a little astonished. "Where are you, kid?" Izuku is hundreds of meters away, his eyes glowing a strange grayish color, still suspended above the ground. The USJ is being demolished, roots emerging from the ground and toppling buildings, villains screaming as they are literally tied to the earth by roots and vines. Izuku doesn't let the vines harm anyone irreparably, but after 5 minutes, he has taken down almost all the villains in the place. A strange energy emanates from near where Aizawa was fighting, and Izuku uses the roots to roam the area. He's not sure what he looks like now, but judging by his father's shocked expression, he's probably a little scary. "What the hell is that?" asks the villain of the hands. He's definitely not an NPC. A student. "Shigaraki, don't be distracted from your target," the warp villain says in a deep voice. Izuku ignores all of this, concentrating on the strange energy emanating from the creature to Shigaraki's right. It's unlike anything Izuku has ever felt before. He raises a hand, and a vine curls around the creature's leg, and Izuku almost vomits. It feels like death and violence. And Izuku feels the taste of ash, blood, and grime from decay in his mouth as vines cling to him. Beneath the layers of meaningless death, feel the touch of something alive, like a pain hidden beneath the surface. His stomach turns. This creature used to be alive. This is what Izuku perceives. It's not right. It's not a natural animal or someone with a gift. This is against the laws of nature, something genetically modified. Izuku crouches, with the vines and roots still writhing around him, connected to everything in the USJ. All the villains remain crouched, and Izuku blatantly ignores Shigaraki and the villain with the gift of the warp. "Izuku, stop!" his father yells, and Izuku immediately feels him trying to get closer. Gently, a root grabs it by the leg so that it does not move. "Izuku, what are you doing?" Izuku approaches the creature with tears in his eyes. He puts a soft hand on her face, shuddering again from the agony she feels. This creature was tortured, and terribly. He has no thoughts of his own, simply exists. Izuku's heart breaks. "I'm sorry," Izuku murmurs to the creature. "It's not your fault. Sleep now." The creature makes a breathy sound, but lands on the ground, closing its eyes. Izuku covers her with dozens of vines before turning to the other villains. "What are you doing?" hisses Shigaraki, reaching out to touch the vines surrounding the creature. Izuku stifles a scream as the vines begin to decompose and die, disintegrating under Shigaraki's touch. He is so distracted that he loses a bit of concentration, not realizing that Aizawa breaks free. His father's capture weapon hangs from his waist, and Izuku is ripped from between the roots and vines, straight into his father's arms. Izuku's eyes still sparkle as they touch the ground, with roots growing around him. It blocks out all sound, curling your fingers into the ground and sending a message to any living thing that listens. There is silence, and then an explosion as the ground shakes. Aizawa gasps behind him as giant trees suddenly rise from the ground, breaking the top of the USJ. The walls burst open, the branches go through them, and the roots destroy the soil. Izuku destroys the building in less than a minute, unaware that the warp villain grabs Shigaraki as they both disappear. "Aizu, you're fine," Aizawa whispers sweetly. "You're safe. Stop, baby. You can let go. It's time to rest. You did well. Boy, you saved us." Izuku writhes in Aizawa's arms, the vines around him trembling. Suddenly, as quickly as he connected to everything, the connection fizzled out. Izuku gasps, slams open his eyes, and sees his father staring at him with eraser activated, and he knows he's using his gift against him. The roots and vines slowly detach from his body, and he begins to cough, unaware of the pressure they were exerting on his chest. After a minute, Aizawa blinks and his vision clears. The ivy vines return to Izuku's arms, shivering as if in pain, but nothing else returns. Izuku looks around in amazement. The gigantic forest that has sprung up inside the USJ is truly worth beholding. Each of the trees on the ground seems to have been there for hundreds of years, and Izuku feels at home among them. "You did amazing," her father says quietly. "You're safe now, Izuku. The villains are gone. Sleep, child." Izuku does. "Shoyuta, what the hell is that?" asks Hisashi, looking at Izuku in the hospital bed. Hours had passed since the USJ attack, and the villains that Izuku had caught with his gift were captured, and the rest of the class was safe. Aizawa had minor injuries and 13 was recovering. Izuku was the only student with serious injuries, and a bewildered doctor had simply called it exhaustion by dawn. However, dawn exhaustion could not explain what Hisashi and Aizawa observed as their son lay unconscious in the hospital bed. They had become accustomed to seeing Izuku with the vines in his arms, but this was completely different. Izuku looked normal, save for his right arm, from the top of his shoulder to his fingertips. His skin had transformed into something that looked and felt like tree bark, and the ivy vines they were used to seeing now only surrounded that arm. The doctors said that the hand worked, that Izuku's skeleton was still intact underneath, but the arm now looked, well, a branch, with one hand on the tip. We should call Kimui Woods, Aizawa says, stroking Izuku's hair with her fingers. I know we've talked about it before, but he's the only one who knows what this is like. What if? If Izuku becomes more like that, we need to know how to handle it. Okay, we can call him, but I don't care if he turns into a tree. He won't fight any more villains, Hizashi says stubbornly. Did he really capture all those villains by himself? Aizawa nods, still stroking Izuku's hair. Yes, 23. And it prevented that monster from attacking us, not to mention creating a huge forest in the middle of the USJ. And it probably saved my life. I'm not surprised that he's exhausted after all that. Hizashi gently takes Izuku's hand, brushing it with his thumb. Our baby. Oh my god, Shoyuta. What are we going to do with it? I don't know. Aizawa sighs, leaning in to kiss Izuku's forehead. But he's going to need our support, Zashi. I don't know how he will react to this. He points to Izuku's arm, now shaped like a tree, and strokes it gently. They remain silent for a few minutes, Hizashi holding Izuku's hand and Aizawa stroking his hair. Finally, Izuku wakes up, blinking in confusion as he looks at his parents. Where am I? He murmurs. Dad? Dad? Hey, kid, Hizashi says gently. You're in the hospital. Do you remember what happened at the USJ? Izuku remembers. Memories assail him. Why, yes. There was. Dad, did you see that thing? Together with Shigaraki? It was wrong. What do you mean? Aizawa asks softly, sharing a worried look with Hizashi. Izuku stirs and puts a hand to his forehead. No, he wasn't alive. It was, but it wasn't. It tasted like, to something dead, and I was so scared. Izuku looks at his hands, trying to control himself, but is distracted by the sight of his arm. He watches him in amazement, flexing his fingers, which look like bark. What? What happened to me? She asks, keeping her gaze fixed on her arm. Dad, what happened? We don't know, Hizashi says calmly, sensing his son's anguish. You made a giant forest appear, and then your father says you collapsed. I erased your gift for a moment, Aizawa murmurs. You weren't breathing well. When I stopped, the vines on your arms went back up, but they moved to your right arm and wrapped around you. Your arm. It is as if the forest had claimed it. You touched the ground, and your skin turned into bark. Izuku tries to process this, but his head hurts, and he doesn't understand anything about what happened today. I want to go home, he whispers as his parents look at him with concern and sympathy. I'm sorry, little one, but until we know what's wrong with your arm, we'll stay here, Hizashi murmurs. Dad and I stayed with you. Your friends are taking care of the plants at home and Luna. Everything is going to be fine. You did great today, honey, but it's time to rest. Sleep, Aizawa says softly. We've got you covered. Izuku remains in the hospital for 3 full days before being officially discharged. His arm still retains its new tree shape, and Izuku is getting used to literally having a branch as an arm. It's strange, his body is still the same inside, but on the outside he will definitely have a hard time getting used to. On the day he was due to go back to school, Izuku struggled in his room to put on his uniform. The sleeve of his blazer was too narrow for the crust to pass, and he tried in frustration to put it on without success. Finally, fed up after nearly 15 minutes of trying, Izuku took a pair of scissors from his desk and cut the sleeve of his blazer on one side, so that the tree-shaped sleeve wouldn't be covered. It was much more comfortable, and Izuku went out for breakfast when he saw his parents look at his choice of outfit in surprise. You know, we can get you a blazer with a modified sleeve, Aizawa says, leaving a plate of waffles in front of Izuku. Your arm will cool down like this. Izuku shrugs, kicking the food. I don't think he will, really. It's okay, Dad. You won't scold me for not wearing a uniform or anything, will you? Of course not, kid. Izuku feels like he's being watched as he walks down the hallway, but he's relieved to walk into 1A and see his friends, all looking at him anxiously. They have accompanied him at every step since he was a child and are used to seeing his gift do strange things, so none of them give much importance to the strange state of his uniform and his body. Izuku, shouted Momo first, and they quickly hugged Izuku tightly. He was followed by Ida, and then Hitoshi and Shudo. Izuku, relieved, hugged his friends, thankful to everyone for being there for him. "Are you okay?" asks Hitoshi, looking worriedly at the bare arm. "You're not hurt, are you?" Izuku shakes his head. "No, I'm fine. What about you?" "I didn't know much about what happened. I was a little afraid that I had hurt someone when, Did you make a giant forest out of nothing?" suggests Shudo, and Izuku nods, blushing. "Everyone was fine. You were the only one injured, apart from 13. "You have to be more careful," reprimands Ida, taking both of Izuku's hands. "You are always so reckless. We don't want anything to happen to you." Izuku looks at his friends with eyes a little full of tears. "Guys, I'm fine, I promise. I know the arm is, pretty hard to take in, but it just happened when I grew the forest. I think it's permanent." "I think it's great," Hitoshi says, and Izuku smiles. Aizawa tells everyone to calm down, and Izuku takes a seat, noticing that some of his teammates look at him in surprise at the new arm, but he doesn't react. He has the support of his parents and his best friends. That's all you need to get through this. Izuku gets lost in thought for a while at his desk until he hears his father say something that catches his attention. "As we prepare for the sports festival, we want you to make sure you train hard," says Aizawa at the front of the room. "Remember, this is your way of getting internships." The sports festival. Izuku had forgotten about it, honestly, after the USJ attack and as he got used to his new arm. He thinks about it a lot, wondering how far he can go. He doubts that he will win, but at least he will give it his all. Izuku is pretty sure Kamui Woods will accept him as an intern no matter what, but he still wants to do well and wants to make his parents proud. He has a lot of training to do. The sports festival is a controlled chaos. Izuku manages to pass the qualifying tests, placing in the top 5 in an obstacle course and being part of the winning team of a cavalry battle. Now, they participate in direct confrontations. Izuku fights with Shudo first, which doesn't inspire much confidence in his future in qualifying. He's already trained with Shudo over the years, and Izuku has told his friends several times that he has the strongest gift potential he's ever seen. Izuku also knows that neither of them will hold back in this fight, which means that Shudo will most likely destroy him completely. Hisashi announces the public address matches with Aizawa. Izuku wonders how his parents will be impartial when they see him fight, especially if he faces a friend of his whom they also know well. Izuku and Shudo enter the ring, and Izuku flexes his arms, moving his new tree-like fingers. He wears his hero costume, a black sleeveless Kevlar shirt and black pants, and he is barefoot. It's extremely simple, but Izuku needs to touch the ground as much as possible. The support department is working to design a better suit for him, but that's what he has for now. Shudo, on the other hand, looks like a real hero student. A blue jumpsuit with a white belt, silver bracelets, white boots, and special adapters for each side of his gift on his arms. A round of applause for Todoroki Shudo against Aizawa Yamada Izuku. Hisashi shouts over the loudspeaker, discreetly avoiding that Izuku is his own son. These two have been best friends since elementary school and have some very powerful quirks. A good fight awaits you. Students, take your stance. I'm going to give you everything I've got, Izuku tells Shudo, in front of him in the ring. Don't hold back with me. You know I won't. Shudo smiles, sliding one foot back and raising his other hand. Both sides of his gift lit up. The ice shimmers, reflecting in the heat of its fire, and creates an intimidating image. Izuku is shocked to see Shudo using his fire, knowing that it was something he was having difficulty with. He's glad his friend is using both halves of his gift, knowing that this will be intense combat. Izuku closes his eyes, knowing that the match is about to begin, and puts his tree-like hand on the ground. Come on, wake up, he thinks, as he looks at the roots that run under the stadium, feeling a tug in his chest as he locates them. Ready, and let's go, says Hisashi over the PA system. Izuku opens his eyes, and there is a moment of silence as Izuku smiles at Shudo. An explosion suddenly shakes the stadium as roots sprout from the ground, twisting around Izuku like tentacles. Shudo shoots ice at them to freeze them, but Izuku pushes the ice away with the roots. Vines sprout from his arm, running across the ground until they climb up Shudo's legs. Shudo moves quickly, crouching down and burning the vines, causing Izuku to hiss in pain. The vines retract slightly, and Izuku curls a root around his waist, using it to throw himself over Shudo and across the ring. Shudo then creates what can only be described as a glacier between them, which Izuku traverses with a huge, heavy tree root. Vines and roots swirl around him, crushing the ice to the ground, like some kind of mysterious forest demon. It's going to get hot, Shudo yells at him from across the stadium, and Izuku prepares for what's to come. Shudo's ice vanishes and he raises his arms. A huge wave of fire hurtles toward Izuku, burning roots and vines, and Izuku gasps with an agony that is not his own. He can feel the screeching of the plants, and Izuku is filled with horror and guilt. He called them here to fight, for a stupid school event, and they're dying. They are dying. They are part of the ecosystem, and Izuku is abusing his power for no reason. Izuku's eyes fill with pent-up tears as he raises a hand to try to pull the souls away from the line of fire as a sharp pain pierces his stomach. He chokes with pain and staggers. Suddenly, as if a race had been applied, the vines and roots disappear. Izuku is kneeling on the ground, his head almost glued to the ground as his whole body trembles in pain. Give in, Izuku babbles quietly, knowing that his voice will be picked up by the stadium's microphones. See Sito. Shudo arrives at his side instantly, kneeling beside him, anxiety reflected on his face as Hisashi declares Shudo's victory. The stadium erupts in cheers, but Shudo ignores him, staring at Izuku's trembling body. "Are you okay?" asks Shudo worriedly. "I didn't hurt you much, did I?" "No," Izuku says between his teeth, sitting up and putting a hand on Shudo's shoulder. I did the damage. I don't think I can stand it." Shudo looks at Izuku, examining him for wounds as his face pales. Izuku sees Shudo looking somewhat ill and wonders what the problem is. Your stomach," Shudo says in a trembling voice. "Look at your stomach." Izuku lowers his gaze and sees a large ice-covered root piercing through his stomach like a sword. It doesn't hurt much, but it bleeds a lot, and Izuku wonders if that's why he suddenly feels dizzy. "Oh," Izuku stammers, hissing at him. Alas, Shudo clearly has the common sense to ask for help and get Izuku to sit down. The creepy image of impaled Izuku is on all screens, and no one announces. Izuku thinks of his poor parents, who are probably losing their minds in the commentary booth. We'll be back soon with the matches. Doctors are already in the camp treating Izuku. It looks like he has a pretty serious injury, folks. It's Midnight's voice, and Izuku trembles as Shudo holds his hand firmly behind his back. Izuku already imagines his parents running down the stairs to greet him in the infirmary. "You will probably have to go back to the hospital, and you will be left with a large scar." Shudo stays with Izuku until a medic rushes into the ring, and it takes a while to get to them as Izuku practically destroyed the floor. "Don't move him!" the doctor yells at Shudo, and Izuku's vision blurs with pain and blood loss. The last thing he sees is Shudo's panicked face screaming his name above him as he passes out. When Izuku regains consciousness, he wakes up in what is clearly a hospital room. He sees his parents sitting on a couch near his bed, both asleep and looking downright awful. Judging by the window to his left, it's nighttime, and Izuku wonders how long he's been unconscious. He lowers his gaze and sees that nothing protrudes from his stomach and that he is bandaged. He sits up carefully, wincing from the sharp pain in his side and dizziness. Aizawa gasps, and Hisashi wakes up startled next to him. They are both at Izuku's bedside in an instant, and Hisashi gently forces him to lie down. "My God, honey," Hisashi says in a broken voice, tears welling in his eyes. "Are you all right, honey? Where does it hurt?" Izuku squeezes his father's hand, glaring at them both guiltily. "I'm so sorry. I am sorry. You had to see that. I should have been more careful." "Don't talk like that," Aizawa replies, and Izuku's stomach shrinks as he watches his parents get emotional. "We're glad you're alive, kid. A little higher or lower, and it could have been much worse. Do you know what happened?" Izuku closes his eyes, remembering the fight. The horrible guilt. He had been sending the vines back, far away, when he slipped up, forgetting to check his surroundings. The root he was impaled on had died, Frozen by Shudo's ability, he realized, so Izuku couldn't feel it. I screwed up, Izuku whispers, squeezing the thin hospital blankets. What a pity. I called for them to fight for me, and they died. It's my fault. Hisashi strokes her hair, while Aizawa squeezes her hand. They both seem exhausted and worried, rather than worried about him. That makes Izuku feel even more guilty and a little sick. I'm so sorry, he repeats. My damn gift always. I always do this to them. From the night they found me. I hate to make them sad. I hate to worry about them. I wish I had more control. I don't think so. A lump in his throat gets in his throat, tears welling up in his eyes as he continues to talk. I don't think he's made to be a hero. Simply, I hurt myself or others. Honey, Hisashi says sadly, don't talk like that. None of this was your fault, darling. You're a hero. Remember how you saved Dad and everyone else from the USJ? You're right, Aizawa murmurs. Come on, boy, it's us. We adopted you after seeing you 15 meters high, in a damn tree. We don't like to see you suffer, but you're not going to scare us. We're your parents, kid. You're stuck with us, and we'll get you out of this, okay? Izuku cries and reaches out to hug them both, comforted by her tender words and caresses. They hug each other for a while until Izuku calms down and looks at his parents with gratitude and love. So who won? Izuku asks, returning to simpler topics. Was it Shudo? Aizawa shakes his head. Bakuga did it. Shudo, I wasn't very well in my head after your fight. I was almost convinced that I had killed you. We didn't want to let him fight in the last fight, but Endeavor insisted. Of course I do. Izuku growls, crossing his arms. So Bakugu first, Shudo second. Who came third? Momo did it, Hisashi smiles. It's incredible. He made impressive creations in his fights and showed incredible ingenuity. Hitoshi also did quite well, and Ida. Both were in the top 10. Izuku smiles, proud of his friends. That's good. How long, will I be here? I'd like to celebrate with the class. You were impaled by what was essentially a spear less than 8 hours ago, Aizawa says sternly, in a serious voice. You won't be able to leave this hospital for at least 24 hours, Izuku. Yes, Dad, Izuku says quietly, his eyes beginning to weigh down. Hisashi covers him with the blankets, wrapping him up like a small child, while Aizawa looks on with concern. Sleep, child, Aizawa says softly. We are here. Izuku has returned from the hospital, bundled up on the couch with Luna curled up in his lap and one of his houseplants gently caressing his arms. He is comfortable. The injury to his stomach is almost completely healed, and he has been at home for a few hours. Hisashi stayed at the hospital to finish some paperwork and also to go to the UA to explain the situation to the rest of the staff and assure them that Izuku was fine. Aizawa took him home, threatening him with punishment if a single point was snatched away. After that, Izuku obediently sat on the sofa. When Hisashi arrives home a few hours later, he brings with him his and Aizawa's job bags and a strange expression on his face. Aizawa greets her husband with a kiss, thanking him for bringing the bags home and looking at him anxiously. What's wrong? Asks Aizawa bluntly, as Izuku watches them from the TV. Hisashi reaches over to kiss her forehead before turning to her husband. I met one of your son's parents, named Bakugo Mitsuki, Hisashi says quietly. She was there to watch the festival, of course, but she didn't want to talk to me about her son. Izuku is interested. He does not know Bakugo Katsuki well, but has a certain unfair dislike for him since he accidentally destroyed the tree on the ground during the dawn assessment tests. In addition, Bakugo is loud and furious, and Izuku doesn't like the energy he frequently emits. What did I want? Asks Aizawa, sitting in a chair in the living room as Hisashi settles on the couch next to Izuku, her work bag still in his hands. He told me he recognized you, Izuku, Hisashi says gently, squeezing his son's hand. He said that you and Katsuki played together as children, although neither remembers it. She was your mother's best friend. Izuku freezes, not expecting it at all. Do you really? Did you know my mother? Yes, kid, Hisashi says, reaching into his bag. After the sports festival and your injury, he came home to get this for you. He said he knew you didn't remember it, but he wanted to make sure you did. Hisashi takes out a photo frame, and looks at it sadly before handing it to Izuku. He takes it with slightly trembling hands, and his heart skips a beat when he looks at the photo inside. It was taken outside a nearby zoo, one that Izuku remembers his parents taking him to as a child. In the photo, he appears, about 3 years old, laughing in his mother's arms. Inko Midoriya wears a summer dress with a floral print and smiles at her, her eyes shining. Izuku hasn't seen his mother's face since the night she died. She is silent for a moment, not realizing that she is crying a little until the tears fall on the glass of the frame. He looks at his parents, heartbroken as he sees them staring at him with concern. "I wish I remembered her better," Izuku whispers, looking at the photo with a sad smile. "I know she loved me, but the only memory I have is the night he died." Aizawa says, her voice aching with pain. "I'm so sorry, kid." Izuku sniffs through his nose, looking at the photo, trying to remember it, remembering something about his mother. Although he can't recall concrete memories, he feels a warmth in his chest when he thinks of her, and he knows that their life together was good. "Please thank Ms. Bakugu on my behalf," Izuku says quietly, not taking his eyes off the photo. "No, I don't think I can talk to her about my mother, not yet. Is that okay with you?" "Sure," Hisashi reassures him, stroking Izuku's back. "I didn't expect anything from you. I just wanted you to have the photo. Now it's yours." Izuku looks at the photo for a long time that night and ends up putting it on the desk in his room. At night, as he curls up in bed, he can look at her and see her, keeping the memory of his mother alive. It is the least he can do for her, for the woman who died protecting him. "Your hero name will define you," says Midnight at the front of the classroom. It's been a few days since the sports festival, and Izuku is back in class. He's been trying to pay attention to the lesson, but he and the rest of his friends are focused on Ida, who is sitting hunched over in the front row. Right after the festival, Izuku received the news. Ingenium, Ida's kind older brother, Tensei, had been attacked by a villain who called himself Stain. Stain was dubbed the hero killer in the news, having eliminated more than 40 heroes and hurled anti-hero rhetoric online. Luckily, Tensei survived, but he probably wouldn't walk again. Izuku, Shudo, Hitoshi, and Momo tried to visit the Ida family at the hospital, but Tenya turned them down, saying that they just needed a moment of family intimacy. Since then, Ida has been quiet, unresponsive to her messages, and closed in on himself in class. Caring so much about your friend makes it hard for you to focus on the lesson. However, Midnight's energetic voice pulls him out of his thoughts and catches the last part of what he says. "Brainstorm," he says, clapping. "I want them to form in pairs and think about their hero names. Remember, your practices are coming up and you'll need key names on the field. Think about it." Izuku turns to Hitoshi, who is on his right. They had already talked about names of heroes, but Izuku hadn't decided on one yet. "The mind control hero, brainwashing," Hitoshi says, turning over a whiteboard on his desk and showing it to Izuku. Izuku smiles and gives his friend a thumbs up. "Great," Izuku enthuses. "Brainwashing. I like it. I'm a little bit more stuck on mine. What do you think of the forest hero, Dryad?" Hitoshi thinks about it and nods approvingly. "I like it. Dryad. Like the spirits of the trees in Greek mythology? I think it's nice. Better than Captain Planet, or whatever Momo suggested when we were 6 years old." Izuku lets out a laugh, writing Dryad on his slate. The class shares their hero names, and both Hitoshi and Izuku get approval for theirs. Shudo has chosen to use only his first name, causing Izuku to sigh fondly for his gruff friend. Momo chose Kriati, as she always said she would. Ida, worryingly, had not yet chosen an alias. Izuku doesn't have much time to worry about Ida, because Aizawa is suddenly handing them out internship offers. Unsurprisingly, the students who finished in the top 3 of the festival have the most offers, but Izuku has a good pile of chips, despite being injured and losing his match. Kamui Woods is the first offer he sees, which makes Izuku smile. He has wanted to work with the hero for as long as he can remember, as his gift is very similar to Izuku's. Kamui's gift was called Arbor, and he could turn parts of his body into trees. Izuku touches his new tree-like arm, wondering if Kamui could help him learn new powers from it. During lunch, everyone discusses their internship offers. Momo works with fat gum, as its quirks depend on body fat. Hitoshi works with Aizawa, Shudo with Endeavor, much to Izuku's concern, and Ida, interestingly, has chosen the hero manual in Hosu. Our first practices, Momo says excitedly, looking at them all. How exciting. Ida, what made you choose manual? A grim gaze crosses Ida's face, but she disappears instantly. I was intrigued by their administrative functions. They will be as important to heroism as they are to combat. Izuku isn't convinced, but the conversation revolves around his own practices. Some of the other classmates at the table also join in. Tokoyami announces that he is working with Hawks, and the shy Kuda mentions that he has accepted an internship with Kamui Woods. Me too. Izuku smiles, smiling at Kuda, who looks at him shyly. We should take the train together tomorrow, Kuda. Okay, Izuku. When Kamui Woods tells them to meet him in the forest, Izuku can't deny that he's a little surprised. He and Kuda met in the morning to catch the train to the outskirts of town. Izuku lingered for a moment to watch Ida board his own train, worry writhing in his stomach for his friend. He and Kuda had been sitting in relative silence on the train, but it wasn't awkward at all. Izuku feels the same energy from Kuda as he does from the plants and animals that sometimes surround him. Soft, sweet, a little wild. Kuda seems shy, but Izuku doesn't mind keeping quiet. He has the feeling that Kuda feels the same way. Once they get off the train, he and Kuda walk into the forest in their hero costumes. Kuda's is very simple, just a monkey with a mouth. Izuku doesn't like the design very much, but he doesn't think it's up to him to have an opinion. In addition, his own suit is not very good either, as he continues with the simple black suit. Anyway, covered in vines, who would see his hero costume? Look over there, Kuda murmurs, and Izuku turns and sees Kamui Woods sitting on the ground, clearly meditating, at the edge of the forest. They approach, and Kamui says nothing, his eyes closed. Izuku and Kuda exchange a glance, before sitting on the floor cross-legged and waiting for the hero to speak to them. Long minutes pass. Kuda is distracted by several small animals snuggling up against him, a squirrel, a rabbit, and a bird. Izuku looks out over the forest canopy, his tree arm rooting into the earth as vines, flowers, and roots begin to climb up his arms and legs. He feels connected again to the nature around him, and a deep fondness for the forest, Kuda and Kamui flows within him as well. Good, Kamui says after almost an hour of silence. Both Izuku and Kuda were startled in surprise when they heard their mentor's soft voice. I see that they have a good connection with nature. It's a good start. His energy is also very balanced. Izuku and Kuda exchange a look, not knowing what to say. They don't have to worry, because Kamui keeps talking, leaning forward to rest his elbows on his knees. There aren't many people with peculiarities like ours, Kamui says softly. And most people don't respect nature, not as much as the two of you. Our training this week will not be combat, but immersion. I need to know the answers to a few things before I start. Kuda, can you communicate with any animal? Kuda blushes, scratching the ears of the rabbit in his lap. Why yes, but I'm afraid of bugs. Kamui nods, without answering more than a quick one. Okay. Izuku, your parents informed me about your gift. Have you ever used the roots of the soil to get nutrients instead of eating and drinking? No. Izuku says, a little surprised that he didn't think to give it a try. As he thinks, more flowers and vines begin to envelop him, not realizing that he is already half wrapped in plants. It's like the forest is trying to get you back, Kuda says quietly, looking at Izuku. The animals like you, Izuku. They say you feel like a tree or a forest spirit. Izuku smiles, moved. Your energy feels the same, Kuda. Like another plant, connected to the forest. Or like an animal, as if you belonged in this place. They're both connected to the forest, Kamui says calmly. This week, everyone has a specific goal that I want them to achieve. Kuda, I want you to communicate with as many creatures as you can. Bugs and insects too, if you can. Izuku, I want you to let yourself go. Let the forest envelop you. Connect with it completely and immerse yourself. I'll make sure they're both safe. Izuku nods, a little frightened at the prospect. He already has a part of him that reminds him of the forest, his arm covered in bark. Would it be completely transformed into a tree or a plant if left alone? He wonders. Kamui guides them deep into the forest, with a small parade of animals following them, while plants reach out to caress Izuku's arms, almost as if trying to get him to stay. Finally, Kamui stops them in the center of a grove of trees, surrounded by beautiful evergreen oak trees. Izuku stares in wonder at the trees, sitting in the center, unopposed as the roots and vines begin to cover him immediately. Kamui orders Kuda to go to a river and try to work with the underwater animals before sitting next to Izuku on the ground, watching the roots with interest. I feel like there's something else you're worried about, Kamui tells Izuku. Something about your gift. Izuku raises his arm, which looks like a tree, where a butterfly has landed on his fingers. He watches her for a moment before speaking. I don't know if it's correct. Call the forest to fight for me. During the festival, I felt some roots dying in my struggle with Shudo. Is that fair? They did not ask to be part of this, to be addressed like this. Izuku, you don't rule in the forest, Kamui says gently. It only helps you because you're a part of it. That's why you feel the pain when plants die. You can't force nature to do something it doesn't want to do. I think you know that. Izuku nods, understanding. He feels a little better, although he is not entirely convinced. I'll talk to you again in 6 days, Kamui tells him. I'll take care of you, Izuku. Let yourself go. Let the forest speak to you. You are safe here. Izuku closes his eyes. He is aware of his body for a moment, aware of how roots and vines completely cover him, flowers and grass blooming around him. He can't see himself, but he's sure he now looks more like a plant than a person. His last conscious thought is that he hopes no one will light a fire near him tonight. After that, your mind soars. He connects to the network in the depths of his mind, and it's as if he flies, traveling through the roots of the forest. See and feel the animals, plants, nature, and the elements around you. He feels people camping miles away. He sees a flock of birds perched in the trees. Feel everything from the death of the tiniest ant to the heartbeat of deer living deep in the forest. It's connection, it's life. Izuku is unaware of the passage of time, but he does not feel hungry or thirsty. His hands are nailed to the earth, and he gets water from the rain and nourishment from the sunlight, needing nothing more than what nature provides. It has completely become part of the forest. Ignorant of what is going on around him, Izuku does not see Kamui or Kuda eating, talking, or sitting with animals. He doesn't see Kamui helping Kuda with his gift, slowly helping him overcome his fear of bugs and insects. He doesn't see them protecting him at night, making sure he's safe. Izuku feels like he's lived 1,000 years and lifetimes, being a part of everything from the flapping wings of the nearby butterfly to the chatter of the squirrels that live in the tree branches above him. Over time, he uses his connection to the roots to see things further and further afield. He sees his parents at the UA, doing their things and correcting papers, and he communicates with some of his friends at his internships. Even in a city of metal and concrete, nature is everywhere, and Izuku can connect with the life he feels in the city to see many things. One night, or a day, Izuku isn't sure. He senses something dangerous. Following the sensation by a root, he sees a vision of Ida lying on the ground, with Stain, the hero killer, above him. Izuku becomes more conscious then, his stomach shrinking with worry. Ida is in danger. Without fully knowing or understanding what he is doing, Izuku uses his connection to the roots that run beneath the city to call one that will explode through the surface. What the hell? The Taintel shouts in his vision, staring at the huge root. Izuku sees Ida's eyes wide, surprised at the sight of the root, and hears him ask, "Izuku? Is that you?" Izuku is unable to respond, being miles away, but uses the root to wrap Stain tightly, pinning him to the ground. Stain screams and screams, but he can't do anything. Izuku watches as Ida finally gets up with trembling legs and calls the police. Izuku continues to watch until the police show up, watching the scene in amazement. Izuku loosens the roots slightly, enough so that the police can handcuff Stain, and then Izuku releases the villain completely. He comes back to reality with a gasp, looking around with his real eyes for the first time in days. The first thing he notices is that Kamui and Kudo are there, sitting a few feet apart, with what looks like a large deer between them, its head on Kuda's lap. Izuku watches his body, realizing that he can't move, and closes his eyes, silently asking for the plants around him to retreat. Izuku, Kimui calls, and Izuku opens his eyes, standing up with trembling legs for the first time in what must be days. How much? How much? Stammers Izuku, feeling the strange tongue in his mouth. It feels strange to need words again. Kuda looks at him with an expression he can't identify, and Kimui approaches, watching him up and down. 5 days, Kimui says. What made you wake up? I admit that I was beginning to worry. Your breathing has slowed down a lot in the last few hours. I think, Izuku says, feeling dizzy. I think I've captured Stain. Kimui freezes, pulling out a cell phone. Seeing an electronic device in the forest makes Izuku think about it. After almost a week connected only to nature. He doesn't say anything, just watches Kimui type on his screen for a few minutes, his eyes wide. It seems so, Kimui says quietly. There are reports that Stain was sucked to the ground by the root of a large tree. Wait, I have to make some calls. Izuku stands still, forgetting for a moment that he can walk. As Kimui talks on the phone, Kudo walks over, looking at him anxiously. Are you okay? He asks, as a squirrel peeks out from behind his head and jumps on Izuku's shoulder. The animals said you were fine, but it was still hard to see you so motionless. I like your new look. Izuku freezes, not understanding what Kuda is referring to. Kuda blushes and points to a small pond in the forest. Izuku approaches, his jaw dropped as he sees his reflection. Its body remains pretty much the same, except that its tree arm is covered in more vines and flowers than usual. It's her face that surprises him. Her eyes are an even more intense and bright green, and her hair is intertwined with vines and leaves, all alive, moving and twisting. He stares at himself for a while until Kimui approaches with a serious face. Izuku, I just spoke to the police chief and your parents. You captured Stain and saved your friend, along with the pro-hero, Native. Given the particularities of the situation, I took responsibility for your participation. You will not receive any punishment for using your gift. It's a lot to take in, but Izuku nods, a little dizzy. Kamui and Kuda invite him to sit down and share a simple meal of berries and nuts that Kuda's animals found in the forest. Izuku is not hungry, as he absorbed nutrients during his time grounded, but he enjoys the taste of fruits and nuts, enjoying the company of Kuda and Kamui. They're both very impressive, Kimui says after a long silence. I hope that when the time comes for them to seriously consider a work-study program, they will both turn to me. We could achieve a lot together. They finish the last days of their study work practicing their gifts together, and Kamui guides them out of the forest. His parents wait for them right outside. Kuda runs to his and hugs them. Izuku smiles and greets his parents, slowly approaching. Flowers sprout from the ground every time she puts her feet on the ground, and Izuku may tell that her parents have questions about her hair, but that is overshadowed by the worry and pride on their faces. We're so proud of you, honey, Hisashi says, hugging Izuku tightly. Capture Stain? And you did it without hurting yourself? Thank God. Izuku smiles and turns to hug Aizawa, who is careful not to rustle the stalls in her son's hair. We are looking forward to knowing everything, Aizawa says calmly. Kimui gave us a fairly complete report of what happened this week. Sounded quite intense. How do you feel? Good. Izuku replies sincerely, saying goodbye to Kuda and Kamui. The truth is, I just want to go home, my dear Luna. Sleeping in my bed. Let's go then, Hisashi replies with a smile. Let's go home. After the week of practice, Izuku spends a couple of days getting used to being in a house again. It feels strange, as if it has lost a limb, after being connected to the forest for so long without stopping. The vines and flowers in her hair had disappeared after a while, so now she looks like she did before her practices. Izuku prepares for the annual UA training camp. The class will go shopping today, and it will be the first time Izuku has gone out in public since spending the week in the forest. He is looking forward to seeing all his friends again. See you in a few hours, Aizawa tells him from the kitchen table. Be careful, make good decisions. Izuku sighs, shaking his head with an affectionate smile. Yes, Dad. Once at the mall, he meets his friends, excited to see the class after the long week they had spent apart. Come on, I want to go get camping gear. Oh, I need a new bathing suit. Do you think they sell flashlights? I just need insect repellent. In a whirlwind of conversations, most of the class separates and Izuku is left alone with Ida, who looks at him a little embarrassed. I could never thank you, Ida says quietly. Because of Stain. I still don't know how you did it, but you saved my life. It was foolish to go after Stain. Thank you for saving me. Tinya, of course, Izuku says gently. You are my friend. Come on, why don't we go to the bookstore? We haven't been together for a long time. Ida smiles beamingly, and they head to the store together. They are halfway through when Izuku feels the hairs on the back of his neck stand up, and someone puts an arm over his shoulder. Don't move, or you'll all die in this mall. A voice whispers in his ear, and Izuku looks at Ida in panic. Ida is about 10 feet away, still walking towards the bookstore, not realizing that Izuku is not following him. The person leads Izuku to a ledge where he sits him, with one arm still on his shoulder. Izuku senses the negative energy of this vile and corrupt person. His mind goes back to the USJ, with the taste of death on his tongue, and he instantly knows who he is. Shigaraki, Izuku says quietly. It's you, right? Awesome, Brad Hero. Shigaraki smiles, with 4 fingers around Izuku's neck. Just to remind you, if I touch you with my pinky, you'll fall to dust. I would be you. I'd stay put, kid. Izuku swallows hard, and his tree arm returns to the planter behind them. Izuku is discouraged to realize that the planter is full of mulch and fake plants, and there is nothing for Izuku to connect to without destroying the entire mall. I want to know how you did it, Shigaraki whispers in his ear, making Izuku shudder. How did you hear about my Nomu? How did you know how to turn it off? I don't know what a Nomu is, Izuku says in a trembling voice, trying to keep his composure. You mean that USJ thing? That dead creature? Shigaraki growls, yes. The one you left inoperable. We had to kill him afterwards. He didn't pay attention to us. How did you wake him up? I didn't. Izuku says sincerely, remembering. I put him to sleep. I was suffering. It was horrible. It wasn't natural. It made me nauseous. What did you do to him? Shigaraki giggles in his ear, a horrific sound that causes Izuku to shudder involuntarily, before saying, Wouldn't you like to know, little hero? I'm here to give you a message. A little bird told me that you defeated Stain, right? I was threatening my friend. Izuku replies honestly, wondering where Shigaraki wants to go with this. That's great. Shigaraki snaps. Stain, that's what they were just talking about. But us? We are going to change society. There's only All Might in the way. If we eliminate All Might, everything will be fine. We will pave the way to a better future. Izuku honestly has no idea what the villain is talking about, so he just tries to stay calm, trying to stay as calm as possible. Let go of my friend. Ida's voice interrupts and Izuku gasps. Shigaraki looks up, squeezing all 4 fingers around Izuku's neck before pushing him sharply toward Ida and disappearing into the crowd. Ida frantically greets the mall's security before going to check on Izuku. Are you okay? Izuku nods, choking a little as he feels bruises around his neck. Mall security shut everything down quickly and placed caution tape around the venue while they called the police. Izuku gives the best explanation possible to the police at the scene, relieved when his parents show up. Why is it always you, boy? Asks Aizawa, her voice a little trembling. Are you okay? Izuku nods as Hisashi anxiously checks his son's neck, grimacing at the bruises there. Shoyuta, I want to take him to the hospital, Hisashi says, causing Izuku to groan. His parents look at him in surprise. Izuku doesn't usually argue with his parents. Back to the hospital. Dad, I'm fine, Izuku pleads. My neck only hurts a little. I promise I'll let the recovery girl check it out, but please don't make me go to the hospital again. Aizawa and Hisashi exchange a look, but both relent, looking exhausted. Okay, Aizu, you win, sighs Aizawa. Come on, we'll take you to UA. After the incident at the mall, his parents wanted Izuku not to attend the training camp, but Izuku protested enough for them to give in. Izuku packed for the trip, secretly relieved to have both of his parents come with him. Okay, Namiri will take care of Luna this week, Aizawa says, checking the apartment. Do you two have everything? Izuku and Hisashi nod and head together to the car to go to the UA and take the bus to camp. Despite the hectic last few weeks, Izuku is excited. Plus, they'll stay in the forest, so you can connect with it while you're there. After a long bus ride, they stop in the middle of nowhere. Most believe it to be a resting area, but Izuku has an unsettling feeling, mostly from his father's expression. He was right to suspect. Hours later, 1A limps into base camp, disheveled and exhausted. Izuku has a bird in his hair and half a root still coiled around his leg. Her hair is covered with vines and flowers, and it is wrapped in dirt. Everyone else looks bad too, but Izuku is grateful for their gift when they learn that they will have to prepare their own food during camp. Izuku adopts a meditative posture like the one Kimui taught him, sinking his fingers into the earth and closing his eyes, absorbing the sun and nutrients from the earth. He reacts a while later, when he sees that some of the 1B students look at him curiously. Rejuvenated, he returns to his companions, sitting between Kuda and Shudo. After a while, the teachers tell them to go to sleep, and they go to shower and brush their teeth, unrolling their sleeping bags on the floor of the room shared by the 1A students. The next day, the dawn training begins. It's exhausting, yet fun, and Izuku has fun practicing using the vines and roots around him as an extension of his body. He hadn't used his gift in this way in a while, and he enjoys practicing combat with it. As night falls, they are paired up for a test of bravery in the forest. In essence, 1B will try to scare them, while 1A will need to keep his resolve and go through the forest. Izuku believes that after spending an entire week in the forest and facing Shigaraki twice in less than a month, he will probably be fine. Kuda and Izuku have been paired and are walking through the forest. Izuku finds it difficult to be scared, as he is connected to the forest around him. Despite 1B's attempts to scare them, the forest is completely calm, so neither Izuku nor Kuda feel anxious. Do you think there are a lot of deer in this forest? Izuku asks Kuda, both ignoring the other class's scare tactics. Kuda nods, a little bird in his hands. Yes, I think so, although they are mostly small animals. Birds, squirrels, rabbits, and bugs, of course. Izuku nods, knowing that Kuda is trying hard to overcome his fear of insects. What do you think of butterflies? They land on me often, so I don't want to be scared. Kuda shudders, but smiles slightly. They're not that bad. I know they don't mean to hurt, just, it's hard to overcome fear, I guess, however irrational it may be. I get it, Izuku says as they walk. They remain silent for a while until they begin to reach the center of the forest, with a terrible and sinister feeling that invades them. Are you sorry? Asks Kuda in a whisper, but Izuku already has one hand in the dirt, surveying the forest around them. He sees a group of villains sneaking into the camp and gasps, looking at Kuda with concern. It's them, the villains who attacked the USJ. Izuku tells Kuda with frightened eyes. They're not many, but they're really powerful. We should let the teachers know, Kuda says with concern in his voice. Izuku feels a hint of fear when he thinks of his parents. But before either of them can move, Aizawa's voice echoes in their minds. Attention, UA students, I'm Eraserhead. There are villains attacking the training ground. You can use your gift to defend yourself, but don't pick a fight. Return to base camp as soon as possible. Shinso Hitoshi, the villains have you in their sights. If anyone is near Shinso, protect them back to base camp. It's a lot to process, but Izuku's stomach shrinks at the mention of Hitoshi. Why would the villains want it? Izuku knows he needs to help, so he carefully pulls Kuda into a bush and hides him behind, where they are practically hidden. Cover me, Izuku says quietly, putting himself into a meditative position. I'm going to help Hitoshi. Kuda nods, and Izuku closes his eyes, digging his fingers into the dirt. He uses his energy to search for Hitoshi, exhaling in relief to find him hiding with Shudo, both of them walking away from the villains. Izuku manipulates a root to reach him by touching his shoulder, causing him to jump in surprise. Shit, Izuku, is that you? Hitoshi asks. The image in Izuku's head looked pale and shocked. Izuku manipulates the root to make it appear to nod, pleased to see the relief on Shudo and Hitoshi's shoulders. Are you okay? Shudo asks, looking at the root. Izuku feels a surge of laughter at the sight of Shudo speaking so seriously to the root, but forces her to nod again before making a frightened gesture to them, directing them towards the base camp. I'll have your back, Izuku thinks, hoping they understand his intentions. Just go? Shudo pulls Hitoshi's arm and they leave, with Izuku following them to keep the villains away from Hitoshi. Along the way, Izuku catches and throws a girl with knives into a tangle of vines before she can cut Hitoshi or Shudo. He stops a villain who seems to be talking to himself and corners another with absurd force. There's one villain left, one who's burning down the forest. Izuku feels a deep agony and feels Kuda calling him. He must be crying. He feels countless trees, plants, small animals, and insects die in the intense flames, and that fills Izuku with fury. How dare this person destroy his forest? Izuku grits his teeth and, knowing that Hitoshi is safe, seeks out the fire villain. It spreads its roots and vines, clinging to the villain's legs and arms. What the hell? The villain stammers looking down. What the hell is this? Kurogiri, get me out of here. Izuku tries to hold on, but the villain is teleported out of the forest, and the flames are extinguished as soon as he disappears. Exhaling, Izuku plucks out the roots and vines, slowly waking up. Kuda is crouched in front of him, looking worried, but Izuku is simply smiling. Everything is fine. Hitoshi and the others are safe. The villains are gone. After training camp, everything turns into chaos. They discover that Hitoshi was attacked for his gift, and soon after, they receive a death threat against Izuku from the League of Villains and Shigaraki. Aizawa and Hisashi panic, but before they have to worry too much, the UA builds dormitories for all the students. Cementos develops and builds state-of-the-art housing in less than 2 days, including a full staff apartment building and several residence halls. Aizawa and Hisashi chat briefly before deciding to move there permanently. Izuku has mixed feelings about leaving his childhood home, but his parents are desperately trying to protect him, so he doesn't resist. After packing everything, Izuku organizes some boxes for her bedroom and others for her parents' apartment, where she will still have a room. Their new apartment in the staff building is larger than the current one. It has 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a full kitchen, and a living room. There's also more room for Luna, and Izuku is happy for her parents. On the day of the move, Izuku went first with his parents to his new home, and his jaw dropped as he entered the apartment. They had already unloaded the furniture from the house, and Izuku was in awe of the space. Wow, this is so cute. Izuku smiles, carefully putting down Luna's cat carrier and letting her out to explore. You guys have a real office again, too. Yes, Cementos really outdid itself. Hisashi calls from the kitchen where he is unpacking the dishes. Aizu, you should go see your new room. I think you'll like it. Izuku enters his room, speechless. It is twice as large as the previous one, and the furniture fits with plenty of space. She is touched to see that her parents have added large houseplants, and her room looks like a small jungle. He leaves his backpack on the floor and starts unpacking the boxes in the middle of the room, storing the books and clothes he didn't want in the bedroom. In the end, the room is almost half full, and Izuku imagines where he will keep everything else during the summer vacation. Dad, I'm going to check out the dorms. Izuku shouts as he steps out, putting on his shoes. I'll be back later for dinner, okay? Have fun, shouts Aizawa. Don't let Kaminari touch anything in the kitchen. We don't need a blackout on the first day. Izuku smiles, greets his parents, and scratches Luna's chin before walking out the door with a cheerful step. He feels safe at the UA, knowing that it would be almost impossible for villains to get in. Sure, he's a little anxious to learn that Shigaraki and the League want him dead, but he guesses they feel the same way about all the heroes. Here he is safe. Upon entering the new bedrooms, Izuku is impressed with how good everything looks. He greets some of his classmates before arriving at his dorm, where he begins to unpack the boxes stacked in his room. She puts away clothes, books, school supplies, and makes her bed. After unpacking all the boxes, Izuku strives to place his plants in the right place. He has a few succulents on his desk, a large palm tree in front of the balcony door, hanging plants on the ceiling, and even a small cactus on his desk. Hi, plants, Izuku says, feeling a little silly as the leaves rustle and wiggle, as if greeting him. I hope this is a good place for all of you. Izuku, someone shouts from outside his door. Izuku comes over to open the door, smiling at the sight of Momo and Ida standing there, staring at their room. Wow, it looks like a little greenhouse, exclaims Momo enthusiastically. My bed barely fits in the bedroom, so I may have to buy new furniture. Did all your books arrive, Ida? About half of them. Ida sighs, pulling up her glasses. It was hard to choose which ones to leave behind. Izuku nods. I understand what you mean. It's not that hard for me, since my parents are on campus, but choosing what to bring to the dorms and what to leave in my new room was. They catch up for a while before going out to check on everyone. Izuku comes in to greet Kuda, cooing to his rabbit and chatting for a while. Once they catch up, Izuku approaches Shudo, admiring how good his friend's room looks. Wow, Sho, this is amazing, Izuku says as he looks out over the very traditional Japanese-style room, whose tatami mats make the room feel comfortable and inviting. Thank you. Shudo smiles, leaning back on his hands. My sister helped me a lot. Hey, I think Hitoshi is finishing. He's next door. Do you want to go see it? Hey guys. Hitoshi smiles from where he is lying on his bed. Good to see you. They catch up, and soon almost all of the 1A is gathered in the dorms, chatting animatedly about life in them. Some begin to prepare dinner, reminding Izuku to go home for dinner that night. After saying goodbye to his friends, Izuku returns to his parents' house. After helping her parents unpack a few more boxes, Aizawa prepares dinner, and they all sit at their new dining table, surrounded by half-unpacked boxes in the chaos of the move. They talk for a while about the new dorms before the subject turns to the classes and teachers. Where's All Might? Asks Izuku, his mouth full of rice. He hasn't been to school lately. Aizawa and Hizashi exchange a glance before Aizawa raises an eyebrow and Hizashi simply shrugs. What? Asks Izuku, putting down his chopsticks. What's wrong? All Might is on a mission, Aizawa says quietly, as Izuku widens his eyes. It's an undeniable secret, we shouldn't tell you this. But since the League has you in its sights, we think you deserve to know. Izuku forgets about dinner and looks at his parents with intrigue. Hizashi runs his fingers through his hair with a sigh before clasping his hands together and starting to speak. The leader of the League is not Shigaraki, Hizashi says quietly. He is a much more powerful villain, aka All for One. All Might fought him years ago and was believed to have died. However, we have more than enough evidence to prove that he is still alive. All for One is extremely dangerous, Aizawa continues. And All Might is looking for it, along with some of the top 10. They have been tracking the activity of the League for weeks. Izuku processes it before gasping. Wait, track? My gift is perfect for that. I can help. I would find them very quickly. No, Hizashi says so firmly that Izuku stares at him. Aizuno, we don't want you to come close to this. You shouldn't use your gift outside of school, okay? We're not going to let anything bad happen to you again. You've been to the hospital too many times this year. Your dad is right, Aizawa says, in a tone that leaves no room for discussion. I know you want to help, boy, but we won't. Your safety is our priority. Please, boy, focus on school, okay? Izuku knows there's no way to argue with his parents when they use that tone of voice, so he just nods and looks back at his dinner. Okay, I promise. Izuku sighs, his stomach churning. I just want to help if I can, okay? We know, boy, Aizawa says sweetly. Aid. More than you think. Who saved me in the USJ? Who defeated Stain? Who prevented Hitoshi from being kidnapped? It was all you, Izuku. We are very, very proud of you. Yes, we are, Hizashi says, but we're also afraid. I don't think my heart can handle you going back to the hospital. Izuku grimaces, guilt creeping in. I'm sorry. I promise I'll focus on school. Just a few weeks ago, Izuku promised his parents that he would focus on the school and not the villains. But it's hard when he takes a studio job with Kamui Woods and is immediately tasked with helping out on a dangerous mission. He and the rest of his companions got their provisional licenses, which means they can now use their gifts in public to stop real villains. Izuku is very proud to have his. Even though he's been using it publicly for years, he tries not to feel guilty about it. Kamui invites Izuku and Kuda, who are interning with him, to a hero reunion hosted by Pro Hero Nitai's agency. Aizawa is there with Hitoshi, who is doing internships with him, along with some classmates. Shudo and Bakugu, both working with Endeavor, some third-year students, Uraraka, Kirishima, and Tsu. In addition to the most well-known professionals, there are also several local heroes. Chisaki Kai, aka Overhaul, is the leader of Shai Hasai Kai, a branch of the Yakuza, Naitai explains. His gift decomposes matter. We have reason to believe that he is experimenting on a young girl and using her to create gift suppressor bullets. It's a scary situation, but Izuku listens intently. Eri is believed to be the daughter of a member of the Yakuza. His gift supposedly killed his own father, and there's something about his biological makeup that allows him to make weapons out of his body. So the goal of the mission is to rescue the child? Asks a hero Izuku doesn't know. Yes, and capture Overhaul simultaneously, Naitai says firmly, clasping her hands together. The sooner we can locate Eri and rescue her, the safer the streets will be. Izuku is dying to say something. I could find Eri right away. As long as Night-Eye doesn't mind a tree root exploding on the floor of his office. He's not sure if it's up to him to speak or not. But as the heroes continue to argue and debate how to find her, Izuku loses patience. Sir, Izuku says, looking at him with surprised eyes, I can find you. Aizawa's eyes wide, knowing what her son is planning. Night-Eye looks on curiously and motions for Izuku to keep talking. My gift, Izuku says quietly. I can connect with the roots of trees and plants and visualize anything around them. I used it to capture Stain a few months ago. Was it you? A hero asks at the end of the table, while most of Izuku's classmates look at him in shock. It was, Aizawa interrupts. Night-Eye, she doesn't lie. Dry can find it. Izuku is proud to hear his father use his hero name, which straightens him up a bit in his seat. Night-Eye stares at him, staring at him for a moment. Are you a dryad? Asks Night-Eye, and Izuku nods. Yes, I remember you. You also lost control of your gift and created a forest where the USJ is supposed to be, if I'm not mistaken. Izuku blushes a little, but stands his ground. That was months ago, sir. Now I have it much more under control. My parents, teachers, and Kamui have been training me very well. I know I can find it. There is silence around the table before Night-Eye nods. Show me. Izuku stands up and sits cross-legged on the floor, both hands sunk into the ground. He winces in pain at having to go through layers of metal and concrete before reaching the earth, careful not to break water lines or power lines when he finds the roots. He touches them, closing his eyes as he enters the net in the back of his mind, connecting him to the roots that run beneath the city. The sounds of the room fade away, and Izuku concentrates solely on locating the girl. After what could have been a few seconds or hours, Izuku sees her. She cries, curled up on a bed in a sad, white room. There are a couple of toys on the floor, but it's no place for a girl. Izuku is furious at the sight of his bandaged arms. Carefully, he inserts a root into the floor of the room, making it look up with a gasp. Izuku doesn't want to scare her, so he covers her with flowers, wiggling her as if he's waving. Hello, he says with a laugh, reaching out to touch the root. Wow, how pretty you are. How are you doing in my room, Mr. Plant? Izuku gasps when Eri touches the root, feeling a connection to it. He wonders how far he can focus on physical contact. Eri, my name is Dryad, he says, watching her open her eyes wide. I'm a student hero, and I'm looking for you. You hear me? Yes. He gasps, jumping out of bed. I hear you. Where are you? Are you on the floor? In a way. Izuku smiles fondly. I'm talking to you from far away. I know where you are, Eri, and we're coming for you, I promise. Really? He whispers with a beaming smile. Will you help me? Will you save me? I promise, Izuku says, though he feels a strange tug inside him and his mind spins. We will arrive soon. Just hang in there. Eri says something, but Izuku reacts with a gasp. He looks around and sees Aizawa kneeling in front of him with a worried expression and Kamui to his right. Dryad, are you okay? Aizawa asks, gently squeezing his shoulder. Your eyes and nose are bleeding, Kamui says gently, though his eyes are filled with worry. You tried too hard to try to talk to her. Did he respond? Why, yes. Izuku stutters, feeling nauseous. She's really scared. Izuku, your arms, his father says, forgetting to mention his hero name. Izuku lowers his gaze and opens his eyes wide as he sees cuts bleeding everywhere, where vines have dug into his skin. His gift had never hurt him so much, not even when he spent the week in the woods, related to him. Eri is at her headquarters, Izuku says, knowing she has to get all the information she can. She's heavily guarded, but I can get her out. I can't. Izuku, Aizawa says with concern, what are you doing? Izuku roots himself back into the ground without realizing it, watching his father's eyes widen in panic. Izuku, stop. Izuku doesn't stop. Soon he gets lost again in the network, not fully knowing what his gift does. He finds Eri again, filling her room with flowers so she knows she's there. Then he explodes gigantic trees on the warehouse floor. He knows he should be waiting. He knows he shouldn't do this without permission, but it's like the forest is using his body, using his gift, to save this little girl. What the hell is going on? A terrified voice shouts, and Izuku isn't sure if it's one of the villains where Eri is or someone in the room where her body is located. Izuku causes a tree to grow in Eri's room, gently wrapping it with roots. She laughs, her eyes amazed, as Izuku covers the tree with flowers, using a vine to tickle her nose, making her laugh. He's not even sure if his body is still with Night-Eye and the others now. He feels completely disconnected from it as he looks at Eri and the tree, which has begun to pull her out of the facility. Dryad? He asks with his mouth open as he looks in his direction. Are you a ghost, Dryad? Izuku looks at himself, surprised to see that he practically floats in the air, transparent. Any kind of spiritual projection? He doesn't know for sure. No, I'm alive, I promise you, she says sweetly, sitting down next to her on the branch. Listen, I'm going to get you out of here. The professional heroes are coming. The tree moves forward for a while until a roar is heard behind them, and Izuku turns to see a group of angry villains pounce on them. The one who was in front destroyed everything in his path. It had to be Overhaul. Dryad, I'm scared. Eri groans, and Izuku reaches over to ruffle her hair, surprised when her hand makes contact. Don't worry, girl, I've got you covered, Izuku says, reaching out to take her in his arms. You're safe now. Izuku tries to stay conscious after hugging her, but then everything goes black. My God, what the hell happened? Hisashi asks. Izuku isn't sure what's wrong, but he hears his parents' voices around him. He lies in the dark, trying to move his arms, but he can't. I don't know, Aizawa says in a choked voice, and Izuku realizes in horror that his father is crying. Zashi, I tried to get him out of there, but I couldn't. Shoyuta, Hisashi says in a voice full of pain. Don't worry, honey. I know you tried your best. What does the doctor say? He has been unconscious for 2 days. 2 days? Izuku thinks. Has it really been that long? They don't know either. Aizawa sighs, her voice completely exhausted. They had never seen anything like it. Eri said that Izuku was there, holding her down as he pulled her out. Our son was astrally projected into a damn tree, Zashi. There is no manual for this. There is a long pause before Hisashi mutters. I know, Sho. Fuck, I just want our baby to wake up. How are their wounds? He had severe internal bleeding, Aizawa murmurs, running her fingers through Izuku's hair. He stopped breathing for a few minutes. Zashi, they pulled the vines out of his stomach. They had dug too deep into his skin. He almost died. Izuku must be in purgatory, hearing his parents worry about him and unable to move. He tries with all his might to blink, to speak, but he is paralyzed. He saved her, Hisashi murmurs. He saved that little girl. And thanks to him, the professionals were able to capture Overhaul and a large group of villains. Our son is amazing, Shoyuta. It will be fine. It will come out ahead. He has done it too. Do you think he'll care? Aizawa gently asks. That we have adopted her. Laughter is heard. Sho, the child almost died for her. I think she would have been furious with us if we hadn't taken her in. Izuku is confused as he listens to his parents talk about him, listening to them talk about Eri, wondering why he can't talk to them right now. He tries to move his arm, but he can't. His stomach hurts. His head hurts. He is tired. Izuku is still in the hospital. He can hear everything around him. He hears the word comma a lot, but he can't seem to move or speak. One of her parents is almost always there, talking to her. Sometimes she feels her hand being touched, her legs moved and stretched in physical therapy, but she can't open her eyes or speak. He learns things while in bed. He learns that his internal organs were nearly shattered by his gift, and that he might have partial vision loss in his left eye. He learns that his tree-like arm has detached from the bark and returned to its normal human state. It was as if his body didn't remember his gift at all. "Izu, honey, I'm Dad," Hisashi says. "A week has passed. Are you going to wake up soon for us?" He says it jokingly, but Izuku senses the pain in his father's voice as he speaks to him. She wishes she could open her eyes to hug him, but she can't move. "Your dad is with Eri," Hisashi says quietly, gently stroking Izuku's hair. "You're installing it at home and helping it decorate your room. We gave him what was going to be the office. He gets along wonderfully with Luna. Your friends in the residence are taking care of your plants." "Honey, just, please wake up," Hisashi says in a choked voice. "Squeeze my hand, something." Izuku wanted to cry. His father looked so desperate, so sad, but he could only lift a finger. He heard a gasp and wondered if Hisashi felt it. "Izuku, did you move?" Hisashi asks, pleading with him. "It was you? You hear me?" "Yes, I can." Izuku tries to say, but can't. He only manages to move his finger again, feeling his father squeeze him with his hand. "Twice is no coincidence," says Hisashi excitedly. "Izu, honey, I'm going to find a nurse, but I'll be right back, okay?" Izuku hears his father call a nurse and tries to stay conscious, but he feels like he's walking away. "I'm sorry, Dad," he thinks as he falls asleep. Then he starts having a strange dream. First, see the professional hero Hawks reunited with the top 10 heroes and the police chief. The FLP, or Paranormal Liberation Front, is planning an all-out assault on Japan, Hawks says seriously. There are hundreds of thousands. All Might warned last night that they are close to locating the League. "What we need is to provoke infighting," Endeavor replies, stroking his flaming beard. Discrepancy between the villains. Shigaraki is the puppet of All for One. Someone has to make him see it. If we manage to get them to face each other, the movement will fall into chaos. Without leaders, attacks will happen on a much smaller scale, one that we can stop. "I agree," Best Jeanist replies. "As everyone knows, I am supposedly missing. Hawks are infiltrating the FLP and the League. They think he killed me." There is a commotion and a noise, and Izuku sees something else. It's the new apartment where her parents live, and she sees Aizawa on the floor with Eri, playing with Luna. "See? He's very gentle," Aizawa says softly, holding Eri's hand. "It won't hurt you." Eri strokes Luna for a moment before looking at Aizawa with big eyes. "Will it be okay?" "Izunai, Dad says he's still in the hospital." "He will," Aizawa says firmly, though his eyes reflect concern. "He spent a lot of energy saving you. You're just getting a good amount of sleep for your body to recover." "I want him to be better now, Daddy." Izuku feels his mind move to another place. The dormitories of Class 1A, where a group of his friends are sitting together, mired. Momo and Ida are on the couch with Kuda, while Hitoshi and Shudo are sitting on the floor, not talking much. "I miss Izuku," Momo sighs after a while. "I'm so worried. I wish we'd be allowed to visit him." Aizawa says we can't because he's still in the ICU. Shudo replies with a worried expression. Apparently he's not out of the woods yet. Not yet. The doctors say that his internal organs were almost destroyed. Hitoshi chimes in quietly. The recovery girl needed 3 sessions just to keep him alive. They still don't know what happened to him. Izuku's mind spins, wondering what this is all about, when he jumps to another place. It's a place he's never been, with people he's never seen, and that's when Izuku realizes he's not dreaming. This is real. He's seeing things that are happening right now. "The sensei wants us to attack, and soon," Shigaraki says to a group of villains. Izuku recognizes the girl with the knife and the villain with the blue fire that nearly burned the forest at training camp, but the others are unknown to him. "What about the tree boy?" spits the villain with the flames. "We all saw how he destroyed the overhaul base." "That's why he's on the kill list," Shigaraki growls, slapping his hands. "Damn hero. It will catch you all by surprise when we strike next week." The information we've been giving Hawks says 3 months, but our attack on Hosu will catch them all by surprise. Izuku's heart races. An attack next week? He has to tell someone. He has to say something. Izuku searches within, finding any ounce of energy and strength he can before slamming open his eyes and gasping hard. Izuku, Hisashi shouts, immediately beside him as the machines around him begin to beep. Stay still, baby, you've got a breathing tube. Nurse, nurse. Izuku tries not to cry or panic as he stares at his father. The choking sensation is horrible while a nurse carefully removes the breathing tube. He turns on his side, coughs hard, and winces as he feels the pain return. Honey, are you okay? Asks Hisashi in an anxious voice while rubbing Izuku's back. Do you know where you are? Hospital. Izuku says hoarse, choked, nodding. I've been awake. I've heard it all. Hisashi seems relieved and helps Izuku lie down. Izuku rests for a minute before remembering everything he has just heard, his eyes wide open, anxious. Dad's 6. Villains, Izuku says, his voice breaking. They? PLF will attack. Next week. Izuku, how do you know about the PLF? Asks Hisashi confused. That's classified. I saw it, Izuku gasps. Dad, it doesn't matter. Already, they're coming. Hosu. Next week. Shigaraki said so. Call. To the Falcons. Hisashi stares at Izuku for a while before pulling out his phone and dialing a number. Hawks, this is Present Mike, Hisashi says calmly. Are you informed of the situation with Dryad? There's a pause, and Hisashi says, okay. He woke up. He saw things and mentioned things to me that he can't know, unless he has actually seen them. And if he's right, we have a problem. Izuku listens with relief as Hisashi explains the situation to Hawks, relieved that he is taken seriously and that he gets the message across. Satisfied that his father will take care of the matter, Izuku falls asleep, exhausted by the shock. When he wakes up, he is no longer in the hospital. He looks around in surprise, realizing that he is in his new room in his parents' apartment. There are medical supplies on the bedside table next to him, and it's evidently been a while since he's woken up, but his body feels so much better. She sits down, puts her feet on the floor, and walks to the living room, smiling when she sees Eri curled up on the couch next to Hisashi and Aizawa with her laptop on the table. Hello, Izuku says quietly, causing everyone to turn. Eri widespreads her eyes, but before she can say anything, Aizawa hugs him tenderly, but tightly. Don't scare me like this anymore, he says. Promise me, kid. Izuku wraps his arms around Aizawa, hugging him gently. I promise, Dad. Aizu and I, says a small voice, and Izuku lowers his gaze, smiling at his new sister. You're Dryad, aren't you? The boy who saved me. Izuku kneels down and reaches out to ruffle his hair like Hisashi does him. Yes, girl. It's me. She bends down to hug him, burying her face in his chest. You are my hero and I-san. Izuku began to cry. Ni-san. He has never been anyone's older brother. Not entirely sure what has happened in the last days, weeks, but he wants to comfort Eri, so he hugs her back. Boy, how up-to-date are you with everything? Aizawa asks. Zashi mentioned that you said you could hear us all the time. Izuku nods, turning away from Eri to look at his father. It's blurry, but I remember almost everything. I had a lot of weird dreams. I think they were visions. I think I was subconsciously using my gift, connecting to the citywide network. Then he lowers his gaze, surprised to see two normal-looking human hands and arms. His tree-like arm has completely disappeared, remembering then that his gift had been almost asleep since the incident. I think I was suffering from a depletion of my gift, Izuku says, or my version of it. When I saved Eri, I released too much energy. My body was falling apart. I think my gift was extinguished to save my life. Hisashi nods from the couch, with a more serious expression than Izuku remembers ever seeing. Yes, that's what the doctors assumed. Come on, boy, let's go to dinner. You need real food, not that way stuff.